Right, welcome everybody to this afternoon's strategic planning. If I can just remind people to turn the phones off or put them on silent. Right, membership of the committee, looking at it, everybody's here that's supposed to be. 2 minutes of the previous meeting, can we pass them as a correct record?
Move on, Chair.
Agreed.
Thank you. Right, item 3, interests and lobbying. I'll start off with Councillor Patrick. I'll go down where that I see him on screen. So, Councillor Patrick first.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, I had a quick look at my emails before we came on air, and I can't see any lobbying, so nothing to declare.
No. Right, thanks, Nigel. Cathy Scott.
Thank you, Chair. Item 8, 12, 13 and 14. On item 8, I just want to make a quick statement on that. As a Cabinet member, a decision was made regarding the closure of Almonbury Academy. This is separate to what the matter of what we have in front of us today, which is King James School. I will approach this with an open mind and listen to what has been said before I make any decision on that. Item 13, 14, that's the Chidswell applications. I live in the vicinity. I equally will approach this with an open mind, listen to what is being said and make my decision on that, but it's just a position statement today.
Right, thanks, Cathy. Councillor Pinnock.
Nothing, Chair.
Councillor Bellamy.
None, Chair.
Councillor Sokol.
Nothing, Chair.
Councillor Pattison.
Thank you, Chair. I'm got an interest in item 8, and as far as I too was a member of the Cabinet that took a decision about the closure of Almonbury Community School and the transfer of those pupils to 3 different schools in the area. Having said that, and having taken that decision, the application in front of us today at item 8, the decision we took then was not dependent in any shape or form on this planning application being approved today. So therefore, I will be approaching it with an open mind and with no predetermination as to the outcome of today's application. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. I've got page 19, page 69, action taken, none. Next, item 4, this is a meeting done in public, but also on webcast and YouTube. Any public questions, Sheila?
No questions, Chair.
Right. Any deputations or petitions?
No deputations.
No. Right. 7, planning applications. 8, we move on to the applications. Obviously, just before we move on, due to the situation that we're in with COVID, there has been no site visits done via a minibus. I've no doubt some people will have gone to look at some sites on their own, which they can. Just clear that one up. So, item 8, application, King James School, Almonbury.
I think Deborah from Legal is just going to make a short statement.
Deborah, do you want to come in?
Obviously not.
No. Right. Item 8, Almonbury.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just confirm that you can see the PowerPoint and hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Nick Hurst, Senior Planning Officer. Thank you, Chair. King James is an academic secondary school, academy secondary school, accommodating 5 school years. The school's buildings are varied, including a Grade 2 listed 18th century entrance block and several 20th century buildings. School's buildings are clustered together to the site's east, with playing fields to the west. Parking is spread around the site, with a large parking area to the southeast. Since September 2020, King James's School received an increase of approximately 110 students following the closure of neighbouring Almonbury Community School's secondary education phase. With Almonbury Community School's closure, the local priority mission areas have been realigned, and as a result, King James has had its maximum student numbers permanently increased from 900 to 1,050. This equates, moving forward, to 30 additional students from now on per year. King James does not currently have the facilities for this increase and is having to teach some students at the former Almonbury Community School site. Separately, since 2004, King James's School has relied on temporary modular buildings to provide 4 classrooms. The proposal seeks to erect a teaching block to accommodate the increase in student numbers from Almonbury Community School's closure and replace the function of the temporary modular buildings. The new building would be sited here, and the proposal also includes an extension to the car park here. This image shows the location of the proposed building to be around this area. The car parking spaces will be replaced within the new car park extension. The new building has been designed to have a minimal impact and a simple architectural form. This design replicates the appearance of the site's more modern structures, which it would be adjacent to. Through the simple design, the proposal's impact upon the setting, including the Almonbury Conservation Area and the Greenbelt, is reduced. It is to be faced in natural stone with a flat roof with parapet. These are conceptual images showing the building in its setting. They demonstrate the mass and the height comparative to the existing school. Views of the building from outside the site would be limited due to the school's existing buildings and the topography around the site. The building would be at its most visible from Arkenley Lane, which runs along the school's south boundary. This image is taken from Arkenley Lane with a view across the school. The building would be sited to the rear of the tree clusters, visible here. These are mock images provided with the application to demonstrate the appearance of the building across the fields. The top image is from Arkenley Lane, and the bottom image is from the adjacent cricket club, which is further to the south. This plan shows a new parking area, which would be sited here in context. It would replace the lost parking spaces and provide parking spaces for the 11 additional staff anticipated. This image shows the former and new priority emission areas for schools in the area. The dotted red shows Almonbury Community School's previous emission area and notably includes the core of Almonbury Village at Almonbury. Notably, King James has not been historically within its own priority emission area, which ended on this line. The black lines are the redistributed emission area for King James, Newsham High School and Nether Hall High School. I shall now provide an overview of Officer's assessment, which is fully detailed within the report before members. The site is within the Green Belt. By virtue of the scale of development and other development having taken place at King James's School before, officers conclude that the proposed education building would be inappropriate development within the Green Belt. The new car park, however, would not be considered inappropriate as an engineering operation. Considering the new building's impact on the Green Belt's openness, the new building would always be seen within the context of the campus. Its design and use of natural stone have also minimised its prominence. Nonetheless, as a permanent building in the Greenbelt that would increase built development, sited on otherwise open land, the proposal would cause a moderate loss of openness. The proposal would not, however, conflict with the specific purposes of the Greenbelt identified within the National Planning Policy Framework. The proposal, through being inappropriate development and impacting on openness, would cause harm to the Greenbelt. This harm carries substantial weight and the proposal should only be supported if the application has demonstrated very special circumstances which clearly outweigh the identified harm to the Greenbelt. The applicant contends that the need to provide educational facilities should be considered a very special circumstances. Following the closure of Almonbury Community School, there is a deficiency of education provision within the area. This is threatening the council's statutory duty to ensure sufficient school places for resident children. The proposal would also allow for the replacement of suboptimal teaching accommodation, the modular buildings that have been the schools have relied on for since 2004. The applicant has justified why King James was the appropriate school to accommodate most of Almonbury Community School's former students. This can principally be attributed to King James being closest to the students needing accommodation, which attributed to the rearrangement of the area's priority emission areas. Officers are satisfied that the applicant's justification has demonstrated a clear need for a new education building at King James's School. The applicant has also demonstrated that the new building's location, form and size is the most appropriate and least impactful method of providing the required facilities, and the size is at an operational minimum. To summarise, and as is further detailed within the committee report, the applicant has demonstrated the need for the facilities why they must be sited at King James's School, and how the proposal's impact upon the Greenbelt has been minimised through considerate siting and scale. Turning to policy, both the local planning and national planning policy framework put substantial weight in supporting the needs of schools and ensuring access to high quality education. Taking all these factors into account and carefully weighing the above considerations, it is considered that the proposal's substantial harm to the Greenbelt would be clearly outweighed by the proposal's benefit to the local education provision. Very special circumstances are considered to exist, and the principle of development with the Greenbelt is acceptable. Considering highways, based on existing student travel data, the proposal is anticipated to generate 35 additional vehicle movements during the morning drop-off period. This period lasts approximately 20 minutes, so can be considered at around 2 extra vehicles a minute. This is not anticipated to have a material impact upon the local highway network, individually or cumulative. This is based on existing student travel trends, however, and it is reasonable to expect more of the new students to walk, given that they live closer to the site around Almonbury Centre, whereas students of the original priority emission area, those of the survey, live as far as Grange Moor. The afternoon movements, which have a lower figure attributed to parents being less available, would take place outside of the recognised peak in the local highway network. To support students walking from Almonbury Centre and enhance highway safety, a condition is to require a crossing to be provided on Fenny Lane near the junction with St Helens Gate. A condition is also to be secured to require the provision of a travel plan to promote sustainable methods of travel for the whole school. 11 additional two-way movements are anticipated for staff. As staff movements take place before and after students' morning and afternoon peaks, they are considered separately and would likewise not have a material impact on the local highway network. The new car park is considered to address the additional demand for parking. Based on this assessment, officers and Highways Development Management are satisfied that the proposal would not harm the safe and efficient operation of the highway. However, to ensure this, a condition for pre- and post-occupation highway surveys is also to be secured. Should the post-occupation survey see that the proposal has led to an impact upon the local highway, improvements and mitigation will be sought. Progressing to other considerations, which are covered within detail in the report, the proposed development is not considered harmful to the historic environment, visual amenity in general, or residential amenity. Other material planning considerations, including drainage, ecology, and adjacent sports pitch, are addressed within the report. 17 representations have been received, 14 of which are in objection to the proposal. These are all addressed within the officer report. To conclude, while the proposal represents inappropriate development within the Green Belt, which must carry significant weight, the proposal's improvements to local education are considered a very special circumstance which clearly outweigh the harm to the Green Belt. Secured through condition, the proposal is also not considered detrimental to highway safety, nor would the proposal harm other material planning considerations. Officers therefore recommend approval, subject to the position of the conditions listed in the officer report. Nothing further to add, Chair.
Right, thank you, Nick. Few speakers now. First one is Helen Tomes.
Thank you.
Right, afternoon, Helen. You've got 3 minutes, starting from now.
Chair, data in the application is misleading, flawed and significantly underplays safety issues. 1. Applicant in planning report is stated as King James's School. Incorrect. The applicant name on the planning application form is Kirklees Council Economy and Skills Capital Delivery Team, not KJS. 2. Underutilised educational space exists less than 1 kilometre away. KJS is operating at the Fernside site that has future capacity and in the past have said they wish to expand to this site. Why is Cabinet not financially supporting KJS to use the educational purpose Fernside site that is costing Cabinet 10 million until PFI ends and spending a further 5 million plus on a site that is no longer fit for purpose. It's Cabinet's need to provide more school places, but there is no need to build more educational space. 3, data submitted is understated to make the application look more favourable. St Helens Gate and Burke Lane are narrow, have several blind bends and a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. Transport assessment from March 2018 is inaccurate. Actual walking is more than 34% higher than the stated 22%. Projected units walking will be 361 to and 400 from school, the majority on St Helens Gate and Dark Lane. Reality is there will be more. There has also been no travel assessment survey of students at the Fernside site that will move to St Helens Gate. No real-time surveys of vehicle and pedestrian flow at key times in the area. No survey of speed and volume of traffic through the day. Footway information has also been excluded. Pavement width is 1 metre, no pavement on Dark Lane. Students walk on the road, cross to Dark Lane on a blind bend. Staff cannot adequately supervise students and are not present. 10.56 is incorrect. There have been 3 RTAs in the past 3 years. Perpetrators fled, so no injuries were recorded. The proposed Puffin crossing is dangerously sited. 4 safe crossing points are needed. There are road safety issues. Increased safety impact on residents and properties not being considered. On-street CCTV is needed. Committee need to reject this application until Cabinet plans for Fernside are known. Why won't Cabinet support KGS using a fit-for-purpose site by paying the PFI bill? Traffic and pedestrian flow and infrastructure impact assessment with costs are done. Planning Committee to visit St Helens Gate to see reality. Conditions needed, 20-mile-an-hour speed limit on all of St Helens Gate, 4 safe crossing points, CCTV and cameras, speed cameras, and a robust pedestrian student travel plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we've got Peter New. Peter, you've got 3 minutes starting from now.
Thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to address your meeting. My name's Peter New. I live at 63 St Helens Gate on the corner of the junction with Arkenley Lane. I shall be brief, as I'm sure you've had many complaints about this matter, including the conservation area, traffic, road safety, school runs both morning and afternoon. Firstly, I'd like to point out that I recently met a man in a survey vehicle who, when questioned as to what he was surveying, told me it was a survey of the access to the school site for delivery of a number of very large low loaders with wide loads. These being the component modules of the new extension to the school. I showed him the problems of the very tight bends and narrow roads, plus restricted access to the school itself, and that HGVs are restricted from entering St Helens Gate. It would appear that another wide access would need to be constructed on Arkenley Lane to allow these loads onto site. That is assuming they can negotiate the access roads to get them there without damage to pavements and private property. This matter needs to be looked at with some urgency before this application is agreed. Secondly, the traffic survey being done at the top of St Helens Gate at the moment is not extensive enough. The road there is narrow, so speed is naturally reduced, whereas lower down, the road allows for greater speed, which we see every day. Should this survey be extended with some urgency, then I think you'll see that the 30-mile-an-hour restrictions are completely ignored and the traffic density is in excess of what is normally available. Thirdly, the school already has a shortage of car parking slots, and several staff park their cars on St Helens Gate every day, causing a traffic problem. Although the plan is to increase the number of slots, this, I believe, is inadequate, and the situation needs addressing before more staff are added to the school. So overall, I'd like to see these problems addressed before you actually make a decision as to whether this goes ahead or not. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks. Next speaker is Councillor McGuinn.
Hi, Steve. I'm trying to. Oh, right. Thank you very much. Right.
Your 5 minutes starts now, Bernard. You all right?
Yes, thank you.
Right.
2 years ago, King James submitted an application to expand their school. My reaction then was there was no way that this application succeed for the following reasons. Number one, the site is in the greenbelt. Number two, it is on the edge of a conservation area. Number three, the access to the school is bad for cars because of the nature of the roads and surrounding the school, and the paths were inadequate to take any extra pedestrians. Number four, the claim that there was inadequate spaces in the area was wrong because Almonbury Community School was not full. Number five, part of the school is listed and new build would inevitably spoil its setting, but that was 2 years ago. So in my opinion, the application failed to meet the special circumstances what would allow any building contrary to national planning guidelines. I have experience of King James's School, as I once taught there in the 1980s briefly as a history teacher. And we were given teachers who left the school, no matter how long the service, were given recognition by the giving of a book. We get told the history of the school. Now, contrary to what people think, most of the buildings are 19th and 20th century, not 17th century, because the school was originally founded in 1608. So the history says that the original site of King James's was different from what it is now. I returned there as a supply teacher between 2000 and 2010 on many short assignments. The school buildings have narrow corridors and on occasions could be considered dangerous in both the 19th century buildings and the 20th century blocks. Cramped would be a generous word to describe them. As a ward member for Almonbury, I have to think now of those children, particularly on the Fernside estate, who have lost their local school because of the authority's decision to close Almonbury Community School. I'm not here to refight that battle, but to record the fact that Kirklees refurbished that school under a public-private partnership, and they are currently paying about £750,000 to the contractor SPY to manage the site. Members of the committee are aware that King James's School is now partly occupying what could be now termed the Fernside building until the King James's site is enlarged to take children from the former catchment area of Almonbury Community School. As it is now correct that there is a shortage of places in the area caused by the closure of Almonbury Community School, that means the current planning application now appears to meet the special circumstances for enlarging the King James's campus, even though, as others have pointed out, the Fernside site would be a better site for the school. If members are minded to pass this application, I would like the following things to be considered for action, which are most of them are in the report, but I think we need to reaffirm them. Number one, that the amount of traffic should be reduced going down St. Helens Gate during the times of school opening and school closing. I did ask an highways officer about the possibility of a one-way system, but he didn't think there was a feasible idea. But I think we should be reducing the traffic going down there if possible. Number two, we should be looking at the speed limit being reduced around the school area, particularly on St. Helens Gate, Dark Lane and Arkenley Lane. I've been told in the past, because there's been no deaths or serious injuries, but the highways, before this application came in, of course, that they wouldn't think about reducing the speed limit even outside the vicinity of the school, which really shocked me. Thirdly, a safe crossing should be placed near Westgate, Northgate, Fenny Lane, St Helens area junctions. I heard Mrs. Tones talking about the possibility of 4 crossings. That might be a bit much, but all the Almonbury Ward Committee councillors went with the Highways officer today to discuss alternatives, and we were particularly looking at the Fenny Lane crossing, which will cause difficulties for a lot of residents in the area. But we have
15
to.
seconds.
The construction of looking at a construction of a walking route down Crascroft to be looked at, which does exist and could be improved. This whole situation has been caused by.
You wrap up, please.
Yeah.
That's 5 minutes.
Right. The authorities' decisions over the last few years have caused this situation. We want to make it clear that this is not an ideal solution. If you're looking for a place to build a school, you would not build it down St Helens Gate. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Right, thank you. Next is Councillor Monroe.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. Okay, well, I understand this council is under a statutory duty to ensure sufficient educational facilities exist for children in our area. This is imperative. As a ward councillor, I have an extra imperative, which is to ensure that this happens, but I also have a commitment to the community I serve. There is now only one remaining secondary school in our area, that is King James School. King James School currently cannot provide the number of school places that will be needed, and therefore future school places are at risk here. Being mindful of this, I just want to say the following. I campaigned for many months to prevent the closure of Almonbury Community School secondary provision. I sought answers to decisions being made, but was never really given a clear explanation, other than the school was undersubscribed, which reduced funding and limited access to the full curriculum. If the school had remained open, we would not be here today, and many pupils would not have had many interruptions to their education. I have asked both King James School and officers whether King James could have considered taking over part of the former Almonbury Community School, combining both schools under the King James banner permanently, but this has been to no avail. For me, this would have provided the best solution, but I realise there are many factors at play here. Intensification. Instead, the changes to King James PA or catchment area and the closure of secondary provision at the former Almonbury Community School will, in my opinion, result in the intensification of the King James School site. This intensification not only places pressure on the existing buildings on site, but also the surrounding footpaths and roads. Access. Kirklees has a local cycling and walking implementation plan. If children can walk to school, it is better for their health and has other wider benefits. If we are to encourage children to walk to school, then it follows we need safe crossings and pavements suitable for walking on. The danger, though, in this case, is from traffic travelling up and down St Helens Gate and the narrow pavements and local road network around the area. Personally, I feel it would be advantageous if King James School work with pupils, parents and carers on projects aimed at walking and cycling to school. They may already be doing this, which is great if that's what's happening, and educate everyone on the health benefits at the same time as letting everyone know about the harmful effects of pollutants from vehicles. I'm not sure if the school has considered car-free zones up St Helens Gate in the mornings and afternoons, or even school streets. Either of these would make St Helens Gate safer for pupils and bring benefits to residents living close by too. I would be happy to work with the school on this if required to, or give them some help with the travel plan if necessary. Finally, Greenbelt. I note the proposal will directly address issues relating to providing educational places in the area which outweigh harm. Yet I do question this when there remains a perfectly good school building standing part empty a short distance away. And I feel it is lamentable that the council has not found the means of enabling King James's to utilise this building on a permanent basis. That's it. Thank you very much.
Right, guilt that. Next is Ian Rimmer.
go.
So
to-
We're having
Matthew Roads.
We're having a problem with that one for some reason, so we'll go to Matthew Roads next. So Matthew, we have 3 minutes and it's starting from now.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. As the agent for the application, I only intend to highlight a few key points. I believe the officer's report comprehensively deals with all relevant matters, and I wholly endorse the conclusions reached. In 2019, the Council approved plans to close the secondary phase of Almonbury Community School and to create an additional 150 pupil places at King James School. This decision has placed huge pressure on the existing facilities at King James's, which was already reliant upon tired temporary modular classrooms and is now forced to operate across multiple sites, including the ACS site. The proposed development is critical to addressing the educational needs within the area and will provide new and enhanced facilities to ensure the council fulfills its statutory duty to provide sufficient school places. The design team have worked closely with officers to ensure that the proposed natural stone building assimilates into the topography of the site and blends in with the existing buildings within the campus. The design and scale of the building means that it will only be visible from outside the campus from limited viewpoints, and the harm on the openness of the greenbelt and conservation area is minimal. National and local planning policy attaches great weight to the creation of expansion of schools, and as a result of the limited visual harm, officers have concluded that very special circumstances exist to justify the proposed development within the greenbelt. In terms of traffic and parking, highway officers have concluded that the resulting vehicle movements from the proposal are unlikely to materially change the school's impact on the highway network. New on-site parking is proposed to cater for the additional staff, with EV charging points proposed to accommodate the growing popularity of electric vehicles and to contribute to the council's climate change agenda. Given the changes to the school admission areas, King James's will now better serve the Almonbury community in which it lies, and therefore a higher proportion of future pupils are likely to travel to and from the school on foot. As a result of this, a travel plan is being prepared by the school to promote sustainable modes of travel and maximise the opportunity. Proposals will also see the delivery of a new crossing on Finger Lane, which will again promote non-car travel, as well as being of wider benefit to the Almonbury community. The project team will be working closely with KC Highways on the detailed design of this crossing and other measures, which is secured by planning condition. It's acknowledged that traffic and parking concerns have been raised, and whilst proposals have been deemed acceptable by officers, the applicants have agreed to a condition requiring a review of highway implications following the opening of the building. This will allow the identification of any further mitigation measures if required. Our project team have worked closely with the Office of the Council and provided additional information where sought. As a result of this, there is no objection to the proposed development from any technical consultees. I therefore kindly request the committee support the Officer's recommendation and approve the application. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Matthew.
Try one more time.
So we're going to try Ian Rimmer again. Members, we're having trouble getting hold of Ian Rimmer, so we've tried 3 or else 4 times, so we'll move on. One thing before I go to members, highways, we've had quite a few people raising issues with highways.
I've got a mobile number. Do you want
Have
me to
you?
try that?
Oh, just before we do that, Sheila's found a mobile number. We'll try that because he's principal at King James, so if he's got wants to speak to us, I think it's a duty that we do. Right, Ian. Glad we've managed to get you. Right, Ian, you've got 3 minutes, and it starts from now.
Okay, thank you, and apologies for the problems. Our phone lines are currently down.
Right.
Yes, my name's Ian Rimmer. I'm principal at King James's School, and I just want to give you some context about our school. So, King James's School is an extremely popular and successful 11 to 16 mixed comprehensive. In November 2019, this success was recognised by Ofsted when the school was re-awarded its good status. The essence of King James's School is to provide a first-class education built around 3 H's. Firstly, our distinguished history. The school gained its name and has been on this site since 1608. This is something that is valued by past, current and future members of our school community. Secondly, our holistic provision, which develops students both academically and pastorally. We're very proud of our exam success, but equally we prepare children for life after King James's and prepare them for the world beyond, a fact that is acknowledged by local colleges and employers alike. Finally, we have high expectations and aspirations. We demand the best from our students and expect them to wear our school badge with pride. Equally, they are well supported to achieve their highest aspirations and dreams. Our ethos, summarised by the King James's Way, demands the best from everyone through key values of kindness and compassion, inclusion and tolerance, nurture and innovation, and greatness and aspiration. King James's is a truly comprehensive school. Our intakers traditionally come from our former priority admission area of Lepton, Kirklees and Grangemore and the surrounding villages. However, as we are always heavily oversubscribed, we regularly receive a significant number of children from outside that area, most notably from Almonbury. With the closure of Almonbury Community School, King James is now for the first time sits within its own priority admission area, providing places for all families in the area, not just those who are lucky enough to live closest to us. We also have 2 new partner primaries with whom we will be working very closely to support our local community. This building work is essential if we are to continue to offer this high quality provision for all our local community. It will provide capacity, critical to us, and without which we could not have the facilities to support our children. The school is currently reliant on temporary accommodation, but with this new block, the mobile classrooms can be removed and children can be taught in a permanent building. Equally, at the moment we are having to work across 2 sites, occupying some of the former ACS buildings. This is not sustainable in the long term, both from a financial, but equally from an educational perspective. Some concerns have been raised about the impact of greater student numbers on our immediate neighbours with regard to travel. It is worth noting that as we now sit within our own priority admission area, it is likely that a greater proportion of our intake will actually walk to school or come by bike. To that end, the school is committed to improving how students travel to and from school and reducing the reliance on car travel. We are currently compiling a comprehensive travel plan and hope to achieve Bronze Award in the Mode Shift Stars accreditation very soon. Moving forward, the school remain committed to working with local residents, many of whom have associations past and present with the school, to ensure we continue to be a good neighbour. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you. Right, that's it for speakers. I'll just rewind to where I was about highways. Have we got any, Chris or Jamie, Ryan?
Chris is here.
So, yes, Chair, it's Chris Downs here.
Right, Chris. Been a few comments about highways. Do you want to add anything in before we go to members?
Yeah, I can do, Chair. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the obviously a lot of the comments have related about highways. I think there's a couple of points to note. One, I mean, the school is where it is, and the highway network around it is what it is, and to some extent that can't be changed greatly. I mean, St Helens Gate, yeah, is quite a narrow road. It has a footway down one side. There isn't sufficient width to widen that. So you know that provision is what it is. I think what we accept is that from with the closure of Almonbury Community School, there is a likelihood that a higher percentage of the children will be walking to school, which could in fact actually lessen the impact of children arriving at school by car. I know we said there'd be a slight increase, but some of the children from farther away that maybe won't be attending this school now won't be travelling by car. So I think there is an acceptance that there's likely to be an increase in the percentage of children walking to the site, and I think that's recognised. And it's proposed to provide a pedestrian crossing along Fenny Lane to assist them crossing at that point.
So I think we're in a position where the school is located where it is, and we're making the improvements that are possible within the constraints of the highway network. We don't think there's going to be a material increase in traffic as a result of the change in pupil, the increase in pupil numbers. The increase in staff is being accommodated on site by additional parking. So on balance, we don't think there's going to be a severe impact as a result of this.
Right, thanks, Chris. Right, members. Councillor Patrick.
Well, I'll kick it off then. We are the Strategic Planning Committee, and sometimes it would be nice if the rest of the council made strategic decisions. That would help us out greatly. And I'm not referring to the closure of the Almondbury School particularly. I just cannot understand why this land was not taken out of the green belt in the local plan, because we can expect in the future that all schools may need to expand. Although I do recall during the local plan process that we were told that there would be no impact on school places, and clearly, you know, we just had Ian Rimmer on saying that the school's always been oversubscribed. I want to approve this, but I have some big problems with this, and I don't accept for 1 minute that there can't be any highways improvements. I don't accept that what we've just heard, the highways network is what it is. We've heard from the ward councillors, and both ward councillors have talked about improvements that are needed to the highways network. Councillor McGuinn talked about reducing traffic down St Helens Gate. He talked about speed limit reductions and also about crossings. I know in the case officer's report where it relates to the condition on the crossing, it says a puffing crossing or similar. Doesn't even specify in the condition precisely what we're going to do. So I'm not happy about that. And I think as a council, if we're the applicant to this, we ought to be looking at improving the highways around that. So you can't assume that kids are going to walk to school. You know, we are all ward councillors. We all know the problems that exist at our schools in the morning and at tea time. When all the cars arrive to drop off the kids, when all the cars arrive to pick up the kids, and some of those people could walk, some of those students could walk, but they don't. So, you know, it's like you can encourage it, but you can't dictate what happens. So there is going to be increase in traffic. I have no doubt about that, because that's what we already see. And I just think it's a bit disappointing. I'm really quite disappointed that as a council we don't acknowledge that we can actually make improvements, and we can do that through this planning process. And I think we absolutely need to do that. So as much as I recognise the school needs to expand, of that there is no doubt, it needs to expand to accommodate, and we've got to sort out these traffic issues. And it's all right talking about electric cars. Electric cars still knock people down. In fact, they're quiet. They're very quiet. You've got more chance of getting knocked down by an electric car than you have a diesel car. So it doesn't resolve the problem merely because you're putting in electric car charging points. That doesn't sort out the road safety issue. We've got extra problems these days. I observe it at Holmfirth High School, where the kids come out and they're on the phones. They're not looking at where they're going, you know, the modern day has brought with it extra hazards, and we need to do all we can to make it safe for everybody going in and out of that school, and also for the residents that live around it who are also affected by it. So I can't support this unless and until we get some guarantees that we can, or unless committee joins with me and recommends that conditions are put in place to make the highway network much safer around there. And let's include some of these things that that have been given to us at today's meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Nigel. Councillor Pattison.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. The issue of the green belt. I mean, yes, the school is in the green belt, but I think, accept all the officers' recommendations or statements about that, and how the provision of the extra education places outweighs that use of the green belt. And I do have to, in coming to that conclusion, I mean, I do have to say that the new building is replacing 2 porter cabins, which are both will be are at the back of the school and will be at the back of the school, which is a predominantly 1960s structure, and therefore the new build, I think, would be more aesthetically pleasing than certainly what's there at the moment, and possibly even would shield some of the 1960s building from any viewpoint that there may be, but it's not affecting the listed building status in as far as it can't be seen. The listed building school is in a separate part of and at the front of the building, and also, as has been said, it's right on the conservation area and the edge of the conservation area. So again, I don't think it impacts on the visuals there. So I will, because of those 2 things, I do accept that the use of the green belt is appropriate in this particular instance. In terms of the highways issues, yeah, I mean, it is the roads are very narrow around there, but I do welcome the in the conditions, and from what Ian Rimmer just said, and what is said in the report as well, that there will be a travel plan and a safety review, and those can't take place, I don't think, not effectively, you can't come up with an effective travel plan until the school is all operating from one site. Whilst ever there are certainly one whole year being educated off-site at the moment, and that's the year 7, then it will be really difficult to ascertain or to work out exactly how much traffic will be going down St Helens Gate. Certainly, if you were to do any survey now. I do take Ian Rimmer's point as well, and again in the report, I believe that operating any school on a split site in this way is really ineffective, and the whole school does need to come together on the one site, and that is for King James's site. It isn't going to be on the Almonbury community site. And I do think that there will be more people walking to school. I mean, it was always oversubscribed, King James's, but it was oversubscribed by people coming from Grangemore, and of course they had to come by car. But certainly, the new people or pupils coming to King James's in future are far more likely to be coming from within a mile radius than was up to this point. We mustn't forget, actually, when it comes to cars, that these are secondary school children that we're talking about who are perfectly capable of taking themselves to school and of walking to school, and if needs be, could be taken part. I mean, if their parents really want to drive them they can drive them part way, and they could walk the rest of the way. So I do, and it's something. I mean, talking of strategic plans, I mean, Kirklees does want to reduce traffic. We do want to encourage healthy activities such as walking to school. And certainly we would like to see all schools having a travel plan that really put walking at the front of their travel plans. So I really do believe that the traffic issues are probably will be reduced in future, but also there can be a review in terms of safety and traffic management, etc., that will help to alleviate what problems still exist. So I think that's all I really want to say at the moment. Thank you.
Right, Cathy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm going to echo the concerns that Councillor Patrick's actually said. Highways is an issue, and whilst travel plans, we've heard from Councillor Patterson, you're talking about travel plans. They're aspirations that people are going to walk. I had a teenage son myself and had to drive him to school on several occasions. In my ward, the pressures of people trying to get them where they live on the doorstep, and the parent still chooses to drive the car in. I think it's going to be a major issue, particularly on them roads, St Helens Gate as well. There's going to be a lot of issues around there. I think, for me, I want to see a site assessment regarding the highways more in depth. I want to know how, if we were minded to approve this application, how vehicular access will be established, particularly if the building on that site. They're saying about the width of the roads and footpaths. I've actually driven down there where school children come and they're walking in the road, out the roads, there's cars trying to pass each other. It's an absolute nightmare. And the other point I want to bring up is whatever we do, it's got to be sympathetic to the area. We've got to think about the residents that actually live there, and also the implications that this site's going to have. It is an intensification of the site. I want to see a condition not only on the traffic, on how we can do that, but I want a condition that there's no further development on this site. Because I think it's even though we're replacing the 2 porter cabins, I think enough's enough in that area. I don't think it can stand anymore. I understand that the headmaster said there's pressures on King James School and it's oversubscribed. But I do think there should be conditioned. That's it. If we're minded to approve this application, there's no further development. Thank you. That'll be it for now.
Thanks, Cathy. Councillor Sokol.
Thank you, Chair. With regard to traffic problem on the St. Helens Gate, Chair, I know years back when I used to drive buses, and I remember there used to be at least 10 buses running in the morning and the afternoon when school closed. And these buses were picking up children from Dalton, Lipton, and Grangemore and other places, And most of the children around in Almambury village and Dalton, I always see them walking to the school. Very few cars that. Except the St. Helens Gate is very narrow road, only one side the footpath is. It's impossible to expand that road. But that time when I used to run buses, honestly, believe me, the staff members, school teachers, they always come out at least 15 minutes before the buses arrive there. And after the evening, when the school closed, they always, 15 minutes, they always help the help the traffic around the school. They direct the traffic on there, and we never ever experience any traffic problem that I know. I'm talking about 10 years, 10, 12 years back now. It might be more traffic now. But I agree with that. Yeah, there is a need to improve that road or slow down the traffic. But I don't think so the problem as much as we are talking about that. So I think that highway officer already said they will look into there, and their Pelican Crossing as well there, and then the local ward councillor Monroe, he offer her help to sit down with the highway officer to work out the plan. That's good. Yeah. With regard to the green belt area, some members always talk about it's a special circumstance, special. Don't they think that children education is a special circumstance? We need children to get their education, achieve their career. And when the school, Alma-Marie Community School was closed, yeah, cabinet offer 3 schools, not only King James and 3 schools, Netherhall and the Newsom High School. It's the parents' choice who pick up their school choice in Alma-Marie. So that's why there was a need. If they had parents had pick up other 2 schools, there might have been no problem for no need for extra building over there. So the cabinet that time listened the parents' choice. Yes, they accept their choice. That's why. So this building, honestly, I was watching on this on the presentation. It looks so beautiful building. I don't think anything wrong with there. Yeah. I know it's not like other old building type which built in 1980 or whatever. Yes, I think I don't see any problem, but I agree with again with the if there is any traffic plan problem, we can sort it put a condition to approve the application. Thank you.
Let's move on. Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you, Chair. I will start by talking about the Almondbury Community School site, because there is absolutely no doubt that if you were looking at the 2 school sites, Almondbury Community School would have much bigger space, much greater possibility for expansion, and so on. If that had been kept, then we probably wouldn't be talking about this application now. And I know that's not exactly relevant from a planning point of view in relation to this site, because it's not before us. But I did, when I went and looked at the site yesterday, I did drive round to the other site, and it's huge. So I just confirmed to myself that we were talking about a site that is better served by roads and has enough space on it to expand. And I'll come to expansion in a minute, because that has been mentioned about not developing this site further. The main problems, it strikes me, is that of the surroundings of this site in terms of the roads, and whether there will be a greater number of children coming to the school on foot or on a bike. But I mean, I think it's possible to do an estimate of what those figures might be, given where the children are probably coming from, given that the catchment area will be altered. I think we need that information, even if it's only an estimate, to give us some idea of what the scale of the issue is. I'm almost certain that what Mr. Rimmer and others have said, that more children will come on foot, is true. And I understand what Councillor Scott has said about taking children to school on some occasions, but for the most part, they would probably go under their own steam most days. No, somebody's shaking their head. Well, all right, that perhaps isn't necessarily true, but I think we need more information, even if it's only an estimate, as to what the kind of take up of walking or cycling to school might be, and I think we need that before we give permission, because we there is a problem if you load too much onto the conditions that are not pre-commencement conditions, then you've lost it, and it's difficult to get back to that situation later. I do think that we can't put a limit on expanding the school, because given what's been said about its popularity, which has always been true, I think that it will continue to be popular, because the offer, as described by Mr. Rimmer, is extremely appealing, and it will continue to attract a lot of pupils, more of whom, to be fair, will come from Almondbury, and that is a good thing. But as I've said earlier, I think we need some estimate of what those figures are likely to be, and we probably also need an assessment of potential walking routes for children who will be coming from the further side of Almondbury, and to find the best way of getting to the school. One of the objectors mentioned something about large loads, and I would like some assurance that if large loads are necessary, rather than building things on site, then that these large loads can actually get to the school, because one of the things that going to the site shows you is with one or two exceptions, the extreme narrowness and tortuousness in some cases of some of the roads. It's really quite difficult. If you were looking for a site for a school, you wouldn't put it there in the first place because of the access. So I'm not going to make any proposal yet. I will leave it at that, and we will see what conclusions we come to very shortly, I dare say.
Right, thanks, Andrew. Councillor Bellamy.
Thank you, Chair. I actually agree with a lot of what Councillor Scott and Councillor Patrick has said. I'm also a mother of a teenage child at one time. And it does come the state where all of a sudden you have to take them to school because they either get up late or, whatever. There's loads of reasons. They come out of school, they don't look, they're on the phones. They absolutely don't take any notice. If you've got a lot of traffic on the road, I'm sorry, that is dangerous. Teenagers will be teenagers. I don't think whatever you say to them, they still don't take any notice. I'm also worried that there's been a mention of a 1 metre footpath. That means you've got teenagers and what have you in the road. If they are walking, I don't honestly think, I think there's very few that will walk to school, whatever. The teenagers tend to rebel and say no, they want to either go in a car or on a bus or something. So I do agree, and I absolutely think something needs to be done with the road network first before you even consider taking more children into this school. I think the roads are extremely narrow. Obviously, we've heard the pavements are narrow. Crossings need to be put in place. I mean, it'd be nice if we could re-educate all teenagers to take care on roads. That would be lovely, but I don't see it. So yeah, I've nothing against, obviously, building on this land to make sure that, you know, all kids are educated and all the rest of it. It's just, I really do think that the road network wants improvements first, or a serious look at. I'd also wouldn't mind knowing when, obviously traffic surveys have been done and probably done recently, but when? Because if it were at any time from March, would have been in lockdown. So, you know, roads may have been a little bit quieter when they were done. So I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Donna. I think I know which way this might be going, but I'll get Nick in first.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Just to come back on a few points there, in terms of abnormal loads, we can look to include an additional condition regarding a construction management plan so that we can see how and where the routes for vehicles will be and what kind of equipment they'll be needing to bring. In terms of condition on further development, we couldn't prevent them putting in a future application, but these considerations would then be picked up then. We can look at potentially removing permitted development rights as applicable for the school to stop them doing things without planning permission, but we can't put a condition saying you simply cannot build. That would have to go through the planning application process in the future. In terms of highways, it is currently proposed to do a pre and post occupation highway surveys. So prior to the occupation of the building, a full survey of the existing road network would be undertaken to review what the situation is. The school would be then allowed to operate the building for approximately 6 months, in which point a second survey would be needed to be undertaken. It is hoped, based on the information provided and the travel plan to be submitted, that there would be no detrimental impact on the highway network. However, if the second survey does identify that there is a worsening or an impact on the local highway network, we then could look to mitigate that at that time. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Nick. Councillor Patterson.
Sorry, just unmuting myself. Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, I am worried that we are over worried by the effect of additional cars, because it is a difficult school to get to at the moment. I mean, that's there's no denying that, and I'm sure that the school does all it can at the moment to ensure that teenagers won't be teenagers, and that they do try to instill in them an idea that they should be responsible and careful on the roads. I mean, certainly my local school, which is Royd's Hall, very few parents actually do take their kids to the secondary school there. They do walk. They walk long distances. They walk all the way from Paddock up to Cowersley and up to Golka, which is a long way, and they do walk. And I do see them acting reasonably and behaving carefully on the roads and narrow pavements, which they do have to walk down there as well. But so I don't think we should egg, if I had say that, that the dangers that there might be, because I think we heard that at best or worst there'll be an additional 35 cars which going down that particular stretch of road at those peak times, and that was actually in the morning rather than the evening, because it would be more staggered in the evening. I think we could actually expect that to be less if we encourage walking and other cycling or even buses. But I am heartened to hear that there will be the 2 traffic surveys, one taken at the moment or pre-development, and one post-development if we agree this in 6 months' time, because I really don't think we can estimate the number of children that will choose to walk, or the number of cars that won't go down the road. But I'm sure, I mean, and of course each year it's going to be different. I mean, this year was the first year intake for of Almondbury children there, so there will be perhaps a smaller number this year from Grangemore, as opposed to more children from Almondbury. And next year it'll be incremental. Next year there'll be 2 years, and the year after there'll be 3 years when there'll be more children from Almondbury and fewer from coming further afield. So it has to be sort of an incremental approach almost to this traffic management. But I'm sure, I feel assured that any traffic management issues will be addressed. They have to be. I mean, there's no two ways about it. They do have to be. And I do feel assured that it's both in the minds of our officers and in the minds of the school itself as well. So I will actually bite the bullet on this one and move the recommendations of the officers to approve this application.
Right, thanks, Carol. Councillor Patrick.
Thanks, Chair. Well, as I said before, I would like to support it, but I'm not going to support it on the promise that we might get something. We're going to be making decisions on other planning applications coming up. Nobody on this committee, I don't think, would support an application for housing and then say, we'll do a traffic survey afterwards, after we've made the decision, after all the houses are being built, and then we'll ask the developer then to improve the traffic. That wouldn't happen. It just would not happen. This has to be conditioned now at this committee. It has to be done now, so that the applicant, the council, the applicant gets on and puts the improvements in place. I mean, it's not as if we're asking for massive, expensive things from what I can see from what the ward councillors were asking for. So what is the problem? Why does the council want to be treated differently as an applicant than we would if we were dealing with a developer? I'm not prepared to do that. The council has to be treated in exactly the same way as any other applicant. And the conditions need to be put in now so that these highway improvements take place. So I'm not going to support this on a promise that something might be done at later, because it won't get done.
Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you, Chair. I couldn't agree more with what Councillor Patrick has said, because it was the point that when I was listening to what Nick Hurst had to say about surveys, one before and one after. Well, the survey needs, what happens if the first survey gives us results that we don't like? And you know, on the promise that something might be done later, it's not nailed down enough, I'm afraid. And I wouldn't necessarily go so far as to voting against it, because we need school places. And despite what I said about this, in a sense, not being the correct site, it is what it is, as has been said by somebody else. But we need it to be the best it can possibly be for those children who are going to go there. We or somebody will know where all the children come from to this school, and would be able to make a fair estimate of how many children might walk to school. I think we need to know numbers which can be estimated from that. I would propose deferring this so that we can get that information before we make a decision. I think that probably all members of the committee, however reluctantly, would eventually support this, but it's got to be done correctly, and therefore I propose deferral for the reason that I've just mentioned. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Andrew. I'll go to Kathy Scott and then I'll bring Chris in and then Nick. Kathy.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I'm going to support Councillor Pinnock and second what you said. I do think we do need school places, and I think a deferral would be appropriate at this time until we get that actual information through. So I'm going to support Councillor Pinnock.
Thanks, Kathy. Chris.
Thank you, Chair. I just thought, obviously, listening to the conversation, I just thought I'd try to pick up on a few of the points members have made. I think there's no getting away from the fact that St Helens Gate is what it is in terms of its width and its provision, and that's what it's always been. And there is limited opportunities to actually provide a wider footpath because we wouldn't have the sufficient carriageway width. I think we have listened to members and sort of colleagues in road safety have been consulted, and we are proposing to provide the pedestrian crossing facility on Fenny Lane, which I think is a good thing because the anticipation is that the majority, there will be an increase in pupils coming from the Almondbury area who want to cross the road at that point. Now, regarding the surveys that have been submitted with the application are obviously based on the existing catchment area, and so they may not be, and I think unlikely to be, a true reflection of, as the catchment area changes, the sort of travel mode for pupils attending are likely to change. But I think it's very difficult. I know what members are asking for, but I think it's very difficult to give any certainty about what the percentage of pupils walking will be until we've got the catchment area that will be attending the school, because we'll be basing current surveys on the current catchment area, which is a lot wider afield and likely that more people would travel by car. And the thing about children getting dropped off at school by car is obviously if they live a long way away, likelihood it might happen. But also, even if they did live closer, sometimes it's parents take their children to school, and I know it from personal experience, on their way to work. It is a linked trip with them going to work. It's not an additional trip on the network. It's a linked trip. They're going to work. Makes common sense to take the children to school and drop them off on the route. So it's not, that's been taken into consideration. But I think estimating how many people will walk until we get the catchment area that the school will serve is going to be an estimate that I don't think there'll be much meaningful data in that. I hear what members are saying, and I'm sure we could go away and look at that, but I just don't think there's going to be any meaningful data because it's going to be based on the modal split and the catchment area we've currently got. And I think really that's just all I wanted. So I just wanted to try to clarify those points and put it into context. If that's helped, I don't know. Okay.
Right. Thanks, Chris. Nick.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate what members are saying. I was just going to highlight the additional conditions recommended within the update were members inclined to go with officer's recommendation. However, I will allow either Julia Stedman or Deborah Wilkes just to step in to summarise members' debate so far. Thank you.
Right, just before we go there, Mohan, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I actually would like to support what Councillor Pattison has proposed. But if some members want to go for deferral, I don't think it should go too far. We need a very short deferment, because I don't want to hold back children education, that's the main thing. Thank you.
Julia, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Like I say, officers, we've taken on board in terms of the concerns and the comments which have been raised by members this afternoon. I think just to sort of summarise on those discussions that have taken place, as we're all aware, it's an existing school, and this proposal is looking at sort of providing that additional accommodation for those students who would now be looking at attending this school following the closure of the community school. So, like I say, those pupils will be attending this school in the coming years in the future. So what officers were originally looking at, or what we were suggesting, were in terms of those improvements to the highways at this stage, because I think that's been the key issue, which has been a cause of concern this afternoon. So as officers pointed out earlier on, we discussed in terms of the sort of the current situation, what improvements, enhancements could then be made, and we were suggesting conditioning these matters. So as officers, we feel that we, like I say, it is appropriate to condition. We've heard what members have said this afternoon in terms of you would rather see this information up front in terms of what highway improvement works would we be looking at. So you've got a bit more of assurance from that side of things, looking at in terms of the travel plan. So what are the numbers of the pupils? Can we look at how many additional vehicular movements we would be expecting? Chris in Highways did point out that it might be a little bit difficult to get those definitive figures at this moment in time because of the existing catchment, which would change as a result of the closure of the school. But we can take those matters back, and we can, like I say, as part of this deferral, we can look at bringing back information which sets out what those highway improvements would be, and along with a draft travel plan. So I think that sort of summarises sort of the members' discussion and members' debate for this afternoon. Does that sound like a summary of your debate?
Yeah, I'm okay with that, to be quite honest with you. Got Andrew.
It's just a clarification, Chair, that even if only from the catchment schools, in terms of numbers of pupils, you get a possible high figure and a possible low figure of numbers of children in actually living in the Almondbury area. That's really all I'm looking for. The school will have that information, and it's just so that we've got some idea, ballpark idea, maybe even, that we can gauge what the demand for walking to school is likely to be. Thank you, Chair.
Can I come in, Chair? I'm just I've been emailing all the officers as this debate has been going on, and it looks to me as if members would like to see something more concrete in terms of a draft travel plan and draft highway improvements. And Councillor Pinnock wants the principal, for example, to look at the points of departure of these new students, so that someone would be able to estimate what the likelihood of them is travelling, the percentage or the actual numbers of them travelling by car, to give some concrete figure for the information that we have at the moment. And that's what we're expecting the developers, applicants, agents to come back with next time. Yeah,
I couldn't put it any better myself, Deborah. We've got two proposals on table. The first one that was seconded and moved and seconded was the one for deferral. Now, councillors, are you happy with what you've heard from Deborah and Julia, what officers need to look at? Defer it for, say, till next meeting and then bring it back? Yeah? Yeah. Right, we'll go to a vote on that one then first. So I will hand you over to Sheila now.
Councillor Bellamy?
Is this for deferral?
Deferral, yeah.
Deferral.
Yeah, for.
Councillor Patrick?
For.
Councillor Patterson?
Against.
Councillor Pinnock?
For.
Councillor Scott?
For.
Councillor Sokol?
For.
Councillor Hall?
For.
That's carried, Chair.
Right. Next page, 47. This is Station Street, Meltham. This is the Morrisons that we've called in at a few times, I remember, over the years. Nick, I think it's you again.
It is indeed, Chair. Just give me one moment.
Yeah.
Can you confirm whether you can see the presentation?
No.
Apologies, that should now be showing.
Yeah.
Great.
Right, Nick, got it.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Just as a quick verbal update, following the consultation, at the conclusion of a preliminary consultation, an informal preliminary consultation on the suggested rerouting of a prow within the site, Kirklees Public Right-of-Way have now confirmed no objection to the proposal. I'll go into this in detail shortly. Meltham's Morrison's is just outside of the town centre of Meltham, with the retail core being around this area. The site hosts the retail store with service yard to rear, the car park and an affiliated petrol station. Along the south boundary is a substantial retaining wall. The proposed extensions are to increase the retail floor space, but would also enlarge the cafe and ancillary floor space. Extensions are to be sited to the front, rear and north side elevation. These images show the store at the front of the store at present. The left image is taken from atop the retaining wall previously mentioned. This image shows the site's rear, the service yard. It is backed onto by a terrace of apartments here. The top image is the existing front elevation. The bottom image is that proposed. The works proposed include a front extension, a flat roofed ATM machine and structure, side extension using part of the existing canopy, infilling the existing entrance to form a glazed foyer, and a new trolley shelter. Progressing to the side elevation, as before, the existing elevation is shown on top and that proposed below. The length of the side extension can now be seen running along here. A flat roofed extension would also be located to the rear, and a new access staircase simply for emergencies and other access routes is shown to the rear. These are 3D plans for a more contextual view. All materials are to match the host building. At present, 2 public rights-of-way cross the site. However, they don't follow a route on the ground. They follow former footbridges which were demolished when the store was constructed around the year 2000. They have never been formally rerouted. Notably, one of the routes runs through the existing building here. Officers have secured an amended route through the site for this public right-of-way. This will be detailed shortly. The other route, currently going through the car park, may be rerouted without being impacted upon by this proposal. The report before members details officers' full assessment. In terms of principle, the proposal does seek a main town centre use outside of the identified main town centre. However, the application is supported by a retail sequential test and retail impact assessment, which demonstrates that the proposal would not harm the viability and vitality of nearby local centres. Therefore, the principle is not opposed. There are no visual or residential amenity concerns. On highways, the proposal is not anticipated to materially increase traffic movements to and around the site. The proposal would increase the size of the store while causing a net loss of 1 parking space within the car park. However, the application has demonstrated that the existing car park provision is sufficient for the store as proposed. Furthermore, a travel plan is to be secured via condition. The travel plan's monitoring fee and a £10,000 contribution towards enhancing the nearby Meltham Greenway are to be secured by Section 106. These assist in promoting sustainable travel to and around the site. For the prow, the pink route, visible here, shows a suggested rerouting path along the store's front. The application would not approve the formal rerouting of the prow, where a separate public path diversion order would be needed, but facilitates that in the future. Apologies. Accordingly, officers recommend approval subject to the conditions listed within the report, with nothing further to add, Chair.
Right, thanks, Nick. We've got one speaker, and it's Steve Buckley.
No problem. Is that?
Hi, Steve.
Hello. How you doing? Are you ready for me to speak?
Yeah, you've got 3 minutes starting from now.
Thank you very much. My name's Steve Buckley. I work for Peacock and Smith. We're planning consultants for Morrison's and we're agents on the application. The Meltham store is one of the very few remaining former Safeway stores that's largely been unchanged since Morrison's bought Safeway supermarkets in March 2004. As a result, the store doesn't offer what Morrison's considered to be their modern customer experience due to various issues such as confined aisles. The purpose of this application is very much to improve the shopping experience and allow the store to effectively breathe, with wider aisles, more checkout counters and an improved entrance along with a larger cafe. It seeks to deliver a better shopping environment for existing shoppers as opposed to attracting a large amount of new customers. On this basis, along with the detailed assessments of how the car park works at the moment, Morrison's are content that the proposed car park meets their needs. As outlined by the officer, we've worked together to resolve any issues regarding the application and also to seek to address historic issues such as the public right-of-way which runs across the site. When the supermarket was built, Safeway never regularised the situation formally. The formal route therefore effectively runs through the area where the bridge used to be, although there has always been an informal route across the front of the store. We've worked with officers, including attending meetings on the site, to agree the best way to improve and formalise the public right-of-way. This will be improved by various measures, including a dedicated surfacing which will delineate the path and minimise any conflict between the store and the route. A public right-of-way application will be submitted shortly. It's respectfully requested, therefore, that the officer's report is accepted and the planning permission be granted. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you, Steve. Right, members, it's over to you. Councillor Patrick.
It looks like I'm going to be the guinea pig every time, does it?
It looks like you're giving Andrew a rest.
All right. Oh, well, that's all right then. Well, I've got a question. I generally support this application, but I've got a question, and that is in relation to conditions 10 and 11. I want to know why it's condition to reduce the proposals. Condition 10 is to limit the size of retail sales area to that submitted, and 11 is to limit the floor space ratio. So why do we need to do that?
Nick?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Yes, of course you can. So condition 10, limiting the size of retail sales area to be submitted. Because this site is outside of the local centre, it's had to go through a retail impact assessment that looks at ensuring the development doesn't take away from local retail centres such as Holmfirth, Meltham, Marsden is near here. So they've done an assessment and determined that it would not cause harm to the viability and vitality of those. However, that condition looks to make sure that they don't add to the floor space, make it even larger, such as a mezzanine floor that would then cause more harm or potentially cause harm to the nearby local centres. So that's the purpose of that condition. So condition 10 is making sure that they can't put in or change the retail floor space, for example, turn the cafe into shopping area, turn the warehouse into shopping area. Condition 11, the ratio between comparison and convenience goods. That is, again, part of the assessment. Comparison goods are your TVs, your electronics, your one-time purchases, whereas convenience goods are your bread, your milk, your butter, the kind of thing you just go pop up and get. So this store has been assessed as primarily a convenience good. It's a food store. It's to stop it turning into an electronics wholesaling store or some other kind of business. So it's really just so that the assessment that's been undertaken of this proposal's impact on local retail environment doesn't change post this permission. Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to answer any more if needed, though.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Councillor Scott.
Yeah, I'm happy with this application, and I'm just going to move it on and support officers' recommendations.
Thanks, Cathy. Mohan.
Thank you, Chair. We know that this store, Morrison, very well, because sometimes we do have a break there when we go on site visit. This store has been situated on very low ground. Any extension, I think, to this building, it won't affect any other residential area or areas from there. And the office, there was only one objection. It's about high-rise car park, new car park, which was about 8 cars. I think under the amended application, there's no longer high-rise car park. It's very low, so there's objection gone. Then again, officer have well consulted with the local ward councillor, who are all 3 ward councillors are supporting this application. So I don't see there is any problem to support this application. So Councillor Cathy Scott has moved as seconded.
Right, thanks, Mohan. Councillor Bellamy.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was going to more or less say the same sort of things. It's, I quite happily support this. Know Morrison's quite well. In fact, it's probably my local supermarket. I think, if they improved their aisles and made them slightly wider, the experience of shopping probably would be better. So, yeah, quite happy to support. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Donna. Councillor Pinnock.
I support this application. It's one of those where the supermarket is just improving itself to make it more attractive, and but there are the right safeguards to ensure that it doesn't over-dominate the shopping centre of Meltham. So I support it. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Nick, I've got you down. Do you want to come back in?
Apologies, Chair. That was when Councillor Patrick was asking a question. I put that, so no longer need to say anything. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Nick. Right, all in all, I think it's a good idea. It's nice to see a supermarket like this expanding, moving out. Garden centre, I suppose you could say, branching out. Being moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Sokol. I'll hand you over to Sheila.
So you voted on approval subject to a Section 106 agreement and the conditions as set out in the officer's report. Councillor Bellamy?
For.
Councillor Patrick?
For.
Councillor Patterson?
For.
Councillor Pinnock?
For.
Councillor Scott?
For.
Councillor Sokol?
For.
Councillor Hall?
For. So, yeah, carried unanimously. Right, next page 69. This is David Brown Gears, Park Road, Lockwood. Adam?
Thank you, Chair. It's Nick Hurst doing the presentation.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Adam is available to answer questions afterwards.
Right. Right, Nick.
Thank you, Chair. The application relates to an area within the southwest section of the David Brown Engineering Works in Lockwood. It is proposed to demolish an existing red brick building highlighted in yellow on this aerial photo and erect a new engineering building in its place. The David Brown site consists of numerous manufacturing buildings. Some have traditional design, while others are modern structures. The modern structures include a large new engineering building immediately to the south of the proposed development here. This part of the site, the application site, abuts several dwellings on De Trafford Street here. This image shows a close relationship between the existing building with a white roof and the adjacent dwellings. This photo shows the existing building to be demolished on the right of the picture, with the nearest houses backing onto the site just to the left. This photo shows 27 De Trafford Street alongside the existing building. The proposal sits largely on the footprint of the existing building and has a split roof height. Officers have annotated the site plan to show the different elements. There is a single-storey warehouse in red, the main engineering building in pink, which has a height of approximately 12 metres, and a 3-storey office in blue. The boundary with the adjacent houses is shown in green. The application's main issue is considered to be the impact on these properties. The drawing at the bottom shows the proposed elevations to the existing dwellings. It includes the outline of the existing building in red, which I shall just trace there for you just to make it evident. As detailed in the agenda update, the plans have been amended to mitigate the impact on residential amenity. The eaves of the single-storey warehouse have been lowered by around ½ a metre to less than the bulk and mass of the S aspect. In addition, the upper floors of the office have been cut back and the overall height of this element reduced by approximately 1 metre. This significantly reduces the scale. The main engineering building forms the assembly and testing area, which is why it must be constructed at this height. The existing building is almost up to the boundary. The new building would be set further back, with space for walking between. The single-storey warehouse would be 1.5 metres from the adjacent gardens. The main engineering building is orientated at a right angle to the existing house, which is sited just up here, to the end house 27 De Trafford Street, which provides a degree of separation which is around 3.5 metres at the widest point. Officers considered that the amendments mitigate the impact to an acceptable level when the separation distance is also considered. There is also the potential for adjacent dwellings to be affected by noise. However, the Council's environmental health team consider that noise can be adequately controlled through a condition requiring a noise report and suitable attenuation. The general design is acceptable. The building will be faced in light grey cladding, which would be in keeping with other modern buildings on the site, including an adjacent building to the south. There would be no increase in employees, and as such, there are not considered to be any highway safety implications. The proposal would enhance the existing facilities and help to support the continuation and growth of a business by providing an additional facility for the assembly and testing of marine gears, which are needed as part of the government's frigate programme. The proposal would therefore deliver an economic benefit which weighs in favour of the application. In conclusion, it is considered that the impact on adjacent properties is acceptable subject to a condition regarding noise mitigation. The proposal would not give rise to any other unacceptable impacts. Officers therefore recommend approval subject to conditions. Nothing further to add, Chair.
Right, thanks, Nick. We've got one speaker, which is Hamish Gledhill.
Okay.
Thank you.
Afternoon, Hamish. You've 3 minutes starting from now.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Hamish Gledhill, the planning consultant representing the applicant. We commend the officer's report, with which the update provides a comprehensive assessment of the proposed development. I'd just like to emphasise, though, that this is not a speculative development. The proposed development is required specifically to allow the applicant to accommodate testing equipment as part of the new forthcoming contract with BAE Systems, which the officer just mentioned a few moments ago. Without the new building, our client will not be able to accept the contract, which would have serious consequences for the company and the large number of people it employs. We acknowledge the site is constrained by neighbouring land uses. However, as set out in the officer's report, and particularly the update, we've worked with the council to amend the scheme to reduce the impact on the neighbouring properties. The footprint of the building is as small as possible, which sees the western elevation further from the neighbouring properties than the existing building. The height of the proposed building has been reduced as much as possible, whilst physically still being able to accommodate the necessary testing equipment. The proposed development will see the removal of the large building, which will be replaced with a modern structure which will match the neighbouring modern buildings on the site, providing a more uniform character and appearance for the site. The granting of this planning permission will help safeguard the future of one of the oldest and most well-known engineering firms in the area, and I hope members of the planning committee will support this planning application. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Hamish. Right, members, it's over to you. Councillor, scroll back up my list. Councillor Scott.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I think it's been a bit of a nice pleasure reading something where they've actually worked with the planning department and the residents and tried to resolve any issues that could be coming forward. I'm happy with the conditions that have been outlined in this application, and I just want to commend the applicants. They've actually worked on this, and what we want is employment for the area, but we need the balance of making sure that if there are people in residential areas within the vicinity, that they are accommodating them and helping them, particularly if there's any noise and things like that. So yeah, I'm happy to support this application, so I move officers' recommendations.
Thanks, Cathy. Councillor Sokol.
Thank you, Chair. We all know that David Brown Gears is a world famous industry, one of the biggest industry in Kirklees. We need it, yeah, and they need some expansion of their site. On Sunday, honestly, on Sunday, I went on site visit to look around those new few houses, the Trafford Road, yeah, on the back of this extension. Yeah, I accept the extension is a bit close to the back garden of the house, but it's already there. This building is already there, yeah. So it might affect those houses, but at the same time, I've noticed the condition of the existing building is eyesore. I think a new building replacement of that it will improve the area actually on the back of their improve their height there. Yeah, I think we can't justify to refuse this application. So I would like to support Councillor Cathy Scott's move and second it, but with environmental condition. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Mohan. Councillor Patrick.
Thanks, Chair. Good to see the business continuing to invest in Huddersfield, and very pleased to see the amendments. Happy to support.
Thanks, Nigel. Councillor Patterson.
I'm going to say exactly the same thing. We were in danger of losing at one point David Brown's, and it's really good to see that they've adjusted to modern technology, etc. And it's really good to see that they're retaining employment on this site. So yeah, I agree with everything that everybody else has said.
Councillor Pinnock.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I agree with everything that's been said. One of the most important things has been alluded to, and that's the relationship with the houses on De Trafford Street. And I'm very pleased to see that there is a condition which requires a management plan to make sure that during the construction of this new building, that at least this is what I hope it's going to say, that the residents there are not unduly affected by the construction activities. because although we are all in agreement that this is a wonderful extension to a well-respected local company, we need to make sure that the interests of the residents are protected as far as possible whilst the construction is going on. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thanks everybody. I think this is a great success story for David Brown's having such a big contract for naval industries and testing of gears, etc. Well done to him. This has been moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Sokol. So I'll hand you over to Sheila.
So you're voting on approval subject to the amended plans and the conditions. Councillor Bellamy?
For.
Councillor Patrick?
For.
Councillor Patterson?
For.
Councillor Pinnock?
For.
Councillor Scott?
For.
Councillor Sokol?
For.
And Councillor Hall?
For.
Carried, Chair.
That's carried unanimously. Nice one, David Brown's. Next,
yes,
we're going to Kirkburton. This is Stores Hall, page 81.
Thank you, Chair. This application is before the committee due to the site being over half a hectare. The application site is within the grounds of the mansion on Staffs Hall Lane, Kirkburton. The site is within the green belt. The host building is Grade 2 listed, but the site is not within a conservation area. There is an existing detached summer house building that is to be demolished, which can be seen. This slide shows images of the existing building at the site to be demolished, and you can see its relationship to the host listed building here. These images show the proposed replacement summer house. It would be constructed from timber cladding. Officers consider the appearance of the proposed building to be acceptable. This plan shows a footprint of the building. The red dashed line shows the footprint of the existing building. The volume of the proposed building is slightly reduced compared to the existing building. However, the proposed decking would project more than the existing hard standing. Weighing these matters, the principal development is considered to be acceptable in the greenbelt, as a development would not result in greater harm to the openness of the greenbelt compared to the existing building it would replace. Regarding heritage, the building is located over 30 metres from the host Grade 2 listed building. Officers and conservation officers are satisfied that the setting of the listed building would not be harmed as a result of the proposal. In other matters, there is no harm to residential amenity. Trees and ecology officers raise no objection to the proposed development, subject to conditions set out within the committee report. There are no concerns relating to highway safety, and no representations have been received. In summary, the proposed development is considered to comply with all relevant local and national planning policies and is therefore recommended for approval. Nothing to add, Chair. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Nick. You'll be surprised to hear that there's no speakers. So straight away over to members. Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would like to formally move the officer's recommendation, please.
Thanks, Andrew. Councillor Patrick.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask some questions on this one because it's in the green belt. The existing building's really what I would describe as an outbuilding rather than a summer house. The summer house is quite a superb looking structure. The application area is much bigger than the building. I'm just a little bit worried that it might become something else at a later date and whether we can just restrict that by condition. Over to you, Chair.
Yeah, no, good question, is that, Nigel? Nick?
Thank you, Chair. I would invite the case officer, Nia Thomas, to answer that question. Thank you.
Yeah.
It would appear Nia is having some technical difficulties, so I will just answer that.
Yeah.
planning permission would be required to convert it from anything other than an ancillary structure for residential use. So it would be limited to normal residential use at the moment. We couldn't necessarily condition that it can't change because planning permission would be separately needed for that. Thank you, Chair.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Nick.
Can I come back? Can I just come back on that?
Yeah.
I mean, an outbuilding that's not used hasn't got a toilet, or well, I don't know whether this existing one's got a toilet, but it's more like a storage building, the existing one, and the proposed one is more like a living area. I mean, it's got a dining table there, and
does look like a toilet in the top right-hand corner.
A toilet in the top right-hand corner. I mean, if it, to my mind, does this make it easier to make this into a dwelling in future if we approve it now? This is if it's just strictly something that is just a posh summer house to a big house, then I haven't got a problem. Yeah, understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if it's a step to something else, then I just think we should be mindful of that, particularly as the application area is much bigger than the building. The building is within the application area.
I think I know where
it
you're
looks
coming
like
from,
a separate plot, doesn't it? If the application area was restricted to the size of the building, that wouldn't be so bad, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's like separated off. It just concerns me a bit.
Kathy.
Thanks, Chair. I equally have concerns because it just looks like a storage place existing now, and it looks like a small residency that they're creating now there within the grounds. You see a lot of these that actually become holiday lets in themselves. So it's just a thought. I have got concerns. I would like to limit. And I know you say later on if they wanted to change it, change of use could be done later application. I'd like to stop the use going any further and perhaps not have a toilet in it or anything like that. So,
Julia.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just coming back on the matter, like I said, the application has been assessed as an ancillary building to the host property of the mansion. So it's set out in the sort of the assessment in front of you. If members want some additional reassurance on that, we can actually impose a condition which does set out it shall be sort of remain as that ancillary use to the host dwelling of the mansion. So a bit similar to, when we've done like say stable blocks in the past. So it's just that extra reassurance that it is for those ancillary purposes and not to be used in a separate planning unit within the site. If that would give members a little bit more comfort on that we're approving what's before you. Thank you, Chair.
Right, Julia. I mean, when I go back to my mansion in Edmund-Wyke, I've still got to make do with we're running into house if needs be.
Yeah, just to confirm it, we can also, because like as part of that condition, it will remain as an ancillary use and not be sort of sold off or used separately. So yeah, just to clarify on that little bit there.
Are you okay with that, members? If you just nod, if you're okay with it. I understand where you're coming from. It does look a little bit suspicious. Right, it's has been moved by Councillor Pinnock, seconded by. Can I have a seconder?
I'll second it with that. Sorry.
Right. Councillor Patrick seconding with that condition on.
With that condition on it.
Condition, yes.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Right. Donna, and then we'll go to vote.
I was just going to say I'll second it with that condition on, but
Right.
before.
Okay.
You're done.
Right. We'll go to a vote for officer's recommendation with that condition on. Sheila.
So that's for approval with the additional condition. Councillor Bellamy?
For.
Councillor Patrick?
For.
Councillor Patterson?
4.
Councillor Pinnock,
4.
Councillor Scott,
4.
Councillor Socko,
4.
and Councillor Hall.
4.
Chair.
That's unanimous. Next, we move over to East Bailey. I think this is something like third or fourth time that we've been here. Page 91, this is Saby Cross, East Bailey.
Victor's taking over the presentation.
Victor, I believe you're there.
I am, Chair. Good afternoon, members.
Hi, Victor.
So just to clarify, I'll present the remaining items on today's agenda, starting with item 12, Saby Crossway. And this is an application for full planning permission for the erection of 46 dwellings at land south of Saby Crossway, East Bailey. Yes, Chair, as you noted, members will recall this application. It was considered by this committee on the 24th of June and 5th of August. At that second committee meeting, members deferred their decision so that officers could consider reasons for the refusal of the application in relation to unregistered land issues. Members will recall that an unregistered strip of land exists along the side boundary of 612 Hunsworth Lane. That's this property that I'm just highlighting with my pointer here. And that unregistered strip of land was discussed at length at previous committee meetings. I will come back to that matter in a minute, if I may, Chair. But firstly, just to recap a few issues relevant to this site and the proposals. The site is located to the southeast of East Bailey, between an existing recreation ground and the Greenbelt. To the northeast is Saby Crossway. To the west is a track providing access from Hunsworth Lane to the East Bailey playing fields. Properties to the north and the west are within the East Bailey Conservation Area, and the site is grassed and slopes downhill from north to south. In these photos, well, the top photo is a montage showing the view from Saby Crossway looking south over the recreation ground, and the application site is the paler grass in the left of that picture. And then the other pictures are views of the north and south ends of the application site, and also the point where the existing track meets Hunsworth Lane. The proposals have evolved during the life of the application. 42 units were initially proposed in the layout shown on the left, that superseded layout 1. That layout had an estate road running through the centre of the site. This was amended, as shown in superseded layout 2, to show the estate road moved to the site's northwest edge, abutting the recreation ground, with dwellings looking out over this open space. Unit numbers were also increased to 46. Now that amended layout, superseded layout 2, that was considered to be a much improved layout that responded well to the site's context and that introduced welcomed natural surveillance to the recreation ground. It also would have provided glimpses of the open countryside to the southeast and would have minimised rear and side garden fences along the site boundaries. However, that revised site layout still showed vehicular access from the proposed, vehicular access proposed from the north, from Saby Crossway, which attracted significant objection from local residents, members, the East Bailey Village Preservation Society and the East Bailey Community Sports Association. Taking on board those concerns, the applicant now proposes to provide vehicular access from the existing track to the southwest, as shown in the proposed layout on the right of this image. Vehicular access is no longer proposed from Saby Crossway, and I will explain how this would be achieved. But firstly, it's important to note that there is still a strip of unregistered land along the side boundary of 612 Hunsworth Lane, and it remains the case that there is not enough space between that unregistered land and the recreation ground to provide a 5.5 metre wide carriageway for two-way traffic and a 2 metre wide footway. And it also remains the case that the applicant is unable to compel the owner of that unregistered land to come forward at this stage. So the applicant now proposes to work around that unregistered strip of land, and the applicant now proposes a vehicular access of adequate width, which would intrude into the southwestern part of the recreation ground. 77.5 square metres of the recreation ground will be needed for this vehicular access. I will come back to this slide in a second, members, but just to show you an image of the existing entrance to the track, or the point where the existing track meets Hunsworth Lane. The affected part of the recreation ground is where I'm highlighting here, in this view to the left of the existing track. Now, such an intrusion into a publicly accessible recreation ground, which is designated as urban green space in the local plan, wouldn't normally be looked on favourably. Recreation grounds are valuable community assets that should be and are protected. However, in this case, some important considerations apply. Firstly, a relatively small part of the recreation ground would be used. Secondly, this is not the most important part of the recreation ground. It's not an area actively used for sport. It is in fact often used for parking, as seen in the earlier image. Thirdly, the applicant has offered to compensate for this loss of recreation land by adding part of the application site to the recreation ground. Fourthly, this use of part of the recreation ground would help unlock an allocated site and would help deliver housing, thus assisting with other local plan objectives. And given the committee's rejection of the previously proposed access from Saby Crossway, this is now the only viable option for accessing the site. And then fifthly, providing vehicular access here would additionally benefit the sports club to the south, which uses the existing track for access. Given those points, the proposal to use part of the recreation ground for the required vehicular access is considered acceptable. This aspect of the proposal does, however, raise some legal issues, and I will just flip back to the previous slide. Firstly, the affected land within the recreation ground is partly owned by the council, 5.5 square metres of which is owned by the council, and those areas are shown in yellow in the middle image here. And the other 72 square metres shown in purple are unregistered. Just to clarify, this purple unregistered land is a different piece of unregistered land to the problematic strip of unregistered land next to 612 Hunsworth Lane that was previously discussed at the last two committee meetings. Officers in legal services have looked into the matter and have concluded that this purple land is vested in the Crown as bona vacantia land, i.e. land without an apparent owner, possibly only because of a plotting error, and the applicant has duly served notice on the Crown, the bona vacantia division, when these proposals were changed. It appears that using this piece of unregistered land does not present the same uncertainty and risk as the unregistered land adjacent to 612 Hunsworth Lane would have. The applicant has also served notice on the council as owner of the yellow land. Also of note, the yellow and purple land and the nearest section of the existing track are registered as common land. This means the applicant will need to obtain a separate consent under the Commons Act 2006 to construct the vehicular access over the common land. However, that consent does not need to be in place before the council makes its decision on the current planning application. The proposed vehicular access can be provided with adequate visibility displays and other requirements relevant to highway safety and adoption. Of the section of track within the application site, the applicant proposes to upgrade approximately half of it to an adoptable standard with 2 metre wide footways on either side of a 5.5 metre wide carriageway. Beyond this, the applicant would also upgrade a further section of the track with a new carriageway surface and footway, which would benefit users of the sports club. Amended drainage proposals related to the proposed vehicular access are considered acceptable by the lead local flood authority. And I will just pop back to this image. The proposed vehicular access will come closer to these two existing trees at the southwest end of the recreation ground. However, the applicant's arboricultural consultant has advised that the access can be constructed without causing harm to these trees. And in comments received this morning, the council's arboricultural officer has agreed that this matter can be addressed through a condition requiring an arboricultural method statement, which is indeed recommended in the committee report. So in conclusion, regarding the proposed vehicular access, it is considered that the proposals are acceptable now and their approval is recommended.
Right.
Sorry, Chair, apologies, I'm not quite finished. Other planning considerations relevant to this application are considered in the committee report. However, of note, 9 affordable housing units are proposed in acceptable locations, meeting the 20% policy requirement. An appropriate mix of tenures is proposed. Of the 46 residential units, 36 would comply with the government's nationally described space standards, and the other 10 would only fall short by 1 square metre per dwelling. Traffic impacts on the local highway network are considered acceptable, subject to minor adjustments that can be secured via conditions. Adequate on-site parking is proposed. Appropriate designs for the dwellings are proposed, and the proposed development responds appropriately to the nearby East Byerley Conservation Area. Approval of full planning permission is recommended, subject to conditions and a Section 106 agreement that would include the recalculated open space contribution referred to in yesterday's committee update. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Victor. Right, there's no speakers for this, so members, it's straight over to you. Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I went and had another look at this site yesterday, and it's funny, isn't it? We've had this application twice before, trying to get a satisfactory access to the site, I'm glad we did put our collective feet down on this one, because it's now come back with what is a much more satisfactory access, giving far better sight lines onto Hunsworth Lane than the other one would have done, and also not annoying some of the neighbours as well. So whilst taking a little bit of the recreation ground is regrettable, I think under these circumstances it is acceptable, because what to me is adequate compensation has been provided by the developer to kind of make up for the bit that's had to be taken. I mean, it is a nuisance, some of these land ownership issues, and particularly because there is another piece of unregistered land on this side of the track. And we've been told what the necessary methods are in order to sort that out. This is an allocated site. And it does seem to me that the length of time it's taken us to get to this point, I think we've got what will be a very satisfactory development, which has the real added bonus of providing a better access to the sports ground, and I'm sure that will go down extremely well. So I would like to move the officer's recommendation on this one.
Right, thanks, Andrew. I think one thing on this as well, this one really does show how important it is to have planning committees as well. I think we've come out with a damn good plan eventually. It has taken some time, but we've got there. Councillor Scott.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to second Councillor Pinnock in his recommendations. We have got a better outcome in this. Even though we've lost a small amount of the recreation ground, it's also, there's a benefit there for the users of the sports area. They also use this access track, and I think holding out like we did and kept going back, and they've worked on this. It's nice to see that this applicant has listened. They've gone back and they've worked on it, and I just fully support this application now.
Right, thanks, Cathy. Councillor Patrick.
Thank you. Well, obviously this is my first time with this application, so I'll I'll have to trust your judgment on that. I've picked up some other points in the report that are of concern to me, and they're really just questions that I need answers from the officers on. I think they can probably all be. I don't think any of them are insurmountable, but I think I will raise them anyway. According to the update, there still isn't full details of a surface water drainage plan, and if possible, I would like to see that condition prior to commencement, because I've seen problems with surface water drainage at other house building sites, not least in my own ward, and I think it's very important that a great deal of attention is given to getting this right. The phase 2 contaminated land is described in the report by EHS as inadequate, and there was nothing in the update. Rather worryingly, the word arsenic is in there, so I think it's important that that is addressed. Also, I noticed that the police shared some concerns about the design. And I wondered whether that had been addressed. It's not shown in the update. And also there have been some concerns about the internal road widths to plots 1 to 7 with no refuse collection access. And I just wondered whether there was an update on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Nigel. Victor?
Thank you. Through you, Chair, just going through those points Councillor Patrick raised one by one. Yes, the full details of a surface water drainage plan would be required prior to commencement. We can make sure that's included in the wording of the relevant conditions. The phase 2 contaminated land report wasn't actually required at this application stage. Routinely, officers require the submission of a phase 1 desktop study, and it's often the case that phase 2 site investigation reports are submitted at conditions stage. It just so happened that this applicant chose to do some of that work at this application stage. The work that was done wasn't considered adequate, so therefore officers recommend that the phase 2 report be expanded upon, and that can be submitted at condition stage as per several of the major applications where we've applied similar conditions. That's the recommendation, at least. The police's concerns did relate to a fairly small number of properties, and those concerns are addressed in the committee report. Given the small number of properties concerned, and also the fact that in our view, the concerns can be addressed through careful design of boundary treatments and provision of lockable gates along the paths that were of concern that would extend behind the rear of the affected properties. We think that's again can be addressed at condition stage adequately. And then regarding internal road widths and refuse collection at units 1 to 7, the recommendation is for a waste collection point to be provided to serve those units, so that the refuse truck wouldn't have to try and negotiate roads that it would struggle to get in and out of. And again, it's recommended that can be dealt with at condition stage. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Victor. I think that's about it. There's nobody else wanting to speak. It has been moved by Councillor Pinnett, seconded by Councillor Scott. So I'll hand over to Sheila and we'll go to a vote.
So you're voting on approval subject to a Section 106 agreement and the conditions in the report. Councillor Bellamy?
Yeah, sorry, we've come a long way with this, but I'm still not convinced, so I'm going to abstain.
Councillor Patrick?
For.
Councillor Patterson?
For.
Councillor Pinnock?
For.
Councillor Scott?
4.
Councillor Sokol,
For.
Councillor Hall.
4.
That's carried, Chair.
Right. Next, page 133. These next two items are position statements. Victor is the officer responsible for them. Do you want to speak to both of them at the same time, Victor?
Yes,
There's
please.
There's no decisions, there's no votes. They're here purely for a position statement, i.e. an update. We've got one speaker, so listen to Victor. If you do your presentation, then there'll be the speaker, they'll come in to say whatever they want to say, and then I'll open it up then to elected members for any questions or any answers that like. Okay with you, Victor?
That's fine with me. Thank you, Chair. So yes, this is a position statement relating to both items 13 and 14, which are two applications for outline planning permission that were submitted earlier this year, both relating to allocated site MXS7. The intention of the position statement is to describe the proposals to members, to inform members of what consultation responses have been received to date, to update members on the assessment work carried out so far, and to seek feedback on the proposals that would inform ongoing discussions with the applicant team and consultees. Officers can also answer or take away questions from members. Of note, although statutory consultation has been carried out, assessment of the proposals by officers is still ongoing. The applicant has also acknowledged that they are yet to provide information relating to key planning considerations. Therefore, certain questions that may be raised by members at this stage may not be answerable yet. However, the update provided by the position statement should nonetheless be useful. The larger site and the larger application relates to 112 hectares where outline planning permission is sought for a phased mixed-use scheme comprising residential development of up to 1,354 dwellings, employment development of up to 35 hectares for B uses, a residential institution, that's a C2 use occupying up to 1 hectare, a local centre of various uses, a two-form entry primary school, including early years provision, green spaces and other associated infrastructure. For the smaller site, which is just over 7 hectares in size, outline permission is sought for a residential development of up to 181 dwellings, along with engineering and site works, landscaping, drainage, and other associated infrastructure. For both outline applications, approval of details of access is sought, with all other matters reserved. The reason for the applicant submitting two applications and separating the northern part of the site from the rest of the site is to enable separate and possibly earlier delivery of up to 181 dwellings. This is proposed in response to the local plan inspector's query as to whether early delivery of housing at part of the site could be demonstrated. Both applications, when considered together, and the larger application when considered on its own, constitute environmental impact assessment development, and the applicant was therefore required to submit an environmental statement. Members will be familiar with the site and will recall the position statement previously brought to committee in July last year at pre-application stage. The applicant is the landowner, the Church Commissioners for England. The site meets the borough boundary shared with Wakefield to the south and is close to the boundary shared with Leeds. The site is formerly Greenbelt land, and its status is now previously undeveloped Greenbelt land. MXS7 is one of the three largest strategic housing allocations in the local plan. The others are Dewsbury Riverside and Bradley Park, and it's the largest employment allocation in the local plan. The site is allocated for mixed-use development in the local plan. Immediately adjacent to the site is site allocation HS47 to the southwest that has an indicative capacity of 280 dwellings, and MXS5 to the west, which has an indicative capacity of 38 dwellings and 3,816 square metres of employment floor space. The North Kirklees Growth Zone initiative identifies Chidswell as a major strategic employment location for the city region and a location for over 1,500 new homes. The smaller image on this slide shows some of the more important highways that would serve the proposed development, including the M62 and the M1. It also shows railway lines, and just to note, the nearest railway stations are at Batley and Dewsbury, although these are not within walking distance of the site. Just a few photographs here of the application site. The top two images are views looking into the site from Chidswell Lane and from the car park of the Huntsman pub. The bottom left-hand image is a view within the site looking towards Dogloich Wood, and the bottom right image is a view of the existing site entrance and pylons at Leeds Road. A concept master plan was prepared in 2017 for the purpose of informing discussions at the local plan examination in public. That master plan had merit, but in the summer of 2018, the council and the applicant agreed to restart the master planning process, looking again at the site's constraints and opportunities, including in relation to public rights of way, existing watercourses and biodiversity, as illustrated here in these three images. The applicant team also consulted with residents, members and other stakeholders. Through an iterative design process, a new master plan was devised. Now, in terms of what has been submitted at application stage, bearing in mind that outline planning permission is sought with all matters reserved other than access, the applicant has submitted a series of parameter plans defining developable areas, pinning down locations of uses, detailing access points, detailing the route of the main residential spine road and part of the road serving the proposed employment uses, and also detailing proposed blue and green infrastructure and other matters. And these are the blue and green infrastructure plans. If outline planning permission is approved, these parameter plans would be referred to in the council's decision letter, and subsequent reserve matters applications would need to conform to those parameters. Several trees, just to do with green infrastructure, several trees within the site are TPO protected, and there are hedgerows within the site. 2 areas of ancient woodland exist just outside the application sites. Regarding biodiversity, the applicant has stated that an on-site net gain can be achieved. In addition to the parameter plans, the applicant has submitted a series of supporting indicative or illustrative drawings, including this layout plan, which is similar to the indicative layout plan seen by members last year. And just to, I won't go into a lot of detail as to what's shown here, members, but the pink areas are obviously the residential areas, as is the white area at the top of the plan. The lilac rectangles indicate locations for employment floor space. The orange area is the 2 Formentary Primary School, and the dark purple area is where the applicants proposed the local centre. The requirements of site allocation MXS7 are summarised at paragraphs 6.2 to 6.4 of the position statement. Assessment of the applications is ongoing. However, of note, the headline expectations of the site allocation would be met by the proposals. The site allocation sets out an indicative housing capacity of 1,535 dwellings and an indicative employment capacity of 122,500 square metres of employment floor space for the site, and also requires a 2 Formentary Primary School and a site-wide master plan. 5 vehicular entrances are proposed. This would involve the demolition of 7 existing dwellings and also buildings at Chidswell Farm on Chidswell Lane. 2 entrances are proposed at Leeds Road. These are vehicular entrances, one at Haybeck Lane, one at Chidswell Lane, and a second at Chidswell Lane, where the proposed spine road would continue westwards through the Our Lane site, where Barrett Homes are proposing a residential development at allocated site HS47, and that scheme was obviously considered by committee last month. In addition to those vehicular entrances, various various entrances for pedestrians and cyclists are proposed, where existing public rights of way already enter the site. Other illustrative information relates to phasing. The applicant does not wish to be tied to a specific order of phasing, but has detailed the applicant's preferred phasing order, and has previously indicated that a 15 to 20 year development programme is expected. Although outline planning permission is sought, the applicant has provided information relevant to placemaking, including details of intended character areas, and the applicant has also submitted design and access statements, a landscape and visual impact assessment, and a master plan framework document. Although much of the information relevant to design and placemaking will be submitted at a later reserved matter stage, this indicative information that we have now provides some reassurance that high quality new places will be created as a result of the work carried out at master planning and outline stage. And just the final slide here just shows for the smaller site and the smaller application access from Haybeck Lane, this is the indicative layout plan that the applicant has submitted. Just to do with representations received so far, these are summarised in the position statement and in yesterday's committee report. Key points to note include the following. 543 representations have been received in relation to the larger application. The vast majority of these are objections to the proposed development, and these include representations from the Chidswell Action Group and other organisations. Representations objecting to the development have also been received from Councillor Lukic and Mark Eastwood MP. For the smaller application, 183 representations have been received. Objectors to the applications have asked the Secretary of State to call in both applications. As with the Castle Hill application recently considered by this committee, the Secretary of State will not decide whether to call in the applications until the Council has resolved to determine them. Of note, the majority of statutory consultees have not objected to either application. The Coal Authority, Natural England and the Environment Agency, for example, have not objected, and the lead local flood authority is satisfied with the proposals in relation to drainage. However, in relation to a key consideration relevant to these applications, Highways England have objected due to the potential impact of the development upon the strategic road network, in this case the M62 and the M1. Highways England have issued a direction preventing the council from granting outline planning permission until further assessment work is completed in relation to cumulative impacts. That work is underway and it may demonstrate a need for capacity improvements at motorway junctions, to which the applicant will be required to contribute. More local highway impacts are also being assessed, and Highways Development Management officers have raised queries regarding the applicant's information. Leeds City Council have also objected on local highway impact grounds. And of note, the applicant has not yet proposed mitigation for the development's local highway impacts. This is the subject of ongoing discussions. However, as with the Our Lane scheme recently considered by this committee, the applicant will be expected to contribute towards improvements to the Shawcross junction and possibly other junctions locally. No financial viability information has been submitted by the applicant to date. The position statement does not include recommendations for determination and is presented to the committee for information and comment. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thanks, Victor. Got one speaker, Councillor Lukic. Yep.
Thank you, Chair.
Starting now.
Thank you. Members, my written objection is included in your report, and I've raised some issues that need specific attention at this stage, particularly the irreversible ecological harm, unsustainable traffic generation, and merging of neighbouring towns that will be caused by these applications. I feel the need to clarify what I mean by the merging of neighbouring towns with this specific allocation on the local plan. What appears to me to be getting overlooked is that when this site was designated green belt, one of the statutory purposes of this was to prevent Dewsbury and Batley from further merging into each other. Regardless of the fact the site has now been removed from the green belt, effective planning and place-based working should prevent this merging from happening. If you go up Leeds Road from Dewsbury past Shawcross with big signs in the middle of the road that mark the boundary between Dewsbury and Batley, the traditional pre-1974 borough boundary across this application site is almost exactly replicated by the present ward boundary between Dewsbury East and Batley East wards, so it's easy enough to follow on modern mapping systems. It's clear that the town boundary crosses the middle of the application site. The indicative layout submitted with this application shows that residential phase 3, named the Lowlands, would place 277 houses across the boundary in Batley, completely isolated from the nearest Batley neighbours by over a kilometre. The primary school would be in Dewsbury and the local centre next door would be in Batley. Issues like this underscore just some of the harm that the decision to take this site out of the Greenbelt could yet cause. These proposals could be seen as Dewsbury taking over part of Batley, and I think we need to specifically address this issue and adopt a clear position that whatever proposals come forward, the two towns should remain clearly separated in this area. To further illustrate the importance of this, I can highlight another local example. Part of Hanging Heaton that currently lies in Dewsbury East Ward is actually part of Batley, and many residents in this area are proud of their Batley identity. It's very important that any development along the town boundary respects local identities. Unfortunately, this often hasn't happened in the past. I also want to emphasise the need for a clear position on the proper management and protection of the watercourses, hedgerows and ancient woodlands within this landscape. The application does not demonstrate commitment on these issues. We also need a clear position on the phasing of the scheme. I'm concerned that if plans are approved, then the proposed employment offer may not be put into development and we may see later attempts to replace it with more housing. I understand that this has occurred with similar mixed-use schemes, and I would like to see a position that if this proposal goes ahead, then the employment offer should be developed first and have a reasonable level of occupancy before the housing comes along. Finally, it's been brought to my attention by a constituent that the Forestry Commission is a non-statutory consultee for these applications, but has not been consulted by the council. Can we please establish whether we should consult the Forestry Commission before progressing this further, as they are likely to have an interest with this being a major development neighbouring ancient woodlands? Overall, I consider that the scale of development in this location is wholly unsuitable and would cause unacceptable harm. I think it's unlikely that such a large development on such a precious local landscape can be made truly acceptable in planning terms. This is shown by the hundreds of objections that have been received, including from strategic consultees. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, it's over to you. Any questions, any observations? Any queries? Councillor Scott.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As it was said earlier, this is a position statement, and I think this is the time for us to try and get things right and add to it. I live in the area, so I'm fully aware, and where Batley meets Dewsbury, the boundary change moved me from Dewsbury into Batley. So just so that we're aware about that. I have a number of issues that I'd like to talk through. 8.13, Yorkshire Wildlife Trust also put in an objection about the development. I wanted to know about what measures are going to be put in place there. I've got a number of them, so if I read them out to the officers, they can probably pick it up. I was also concerned about 8.15 about the air quality. I think that it's essential that we have some air quality impact assessments done. 8.17, I was looking at the buffer zones regarding existing residential properties and also new development. We're looking at outdoor sport provision on this application. You know, anything like that is going to have an impact. We currently suffer where we allow muggers and sports places and that to be on site near existing residential or new residential. It becomes a problem. So I'd like to see some mitigation or some kind of statement where we're going there. And then there's 8.19 on the affordable. I think we need to start looking at the affordable area. I mean, we're currently asking for 20%. I think based on this kind of application, we should be pushing it further, you know, asking for a substantial amount more. I'll leave it there for now, Chair. I also want officers to come back about 8.28 about the density. It's quite varying. The deeper into it, the more intensified it becomes. So I think I'd like to talk them to come back to me on that as well. So I'll just leave it there for now.
Right, thanks, Cathy. Morrison.
Yeah, Chair. I think it's a long way to go before we get any development on this site. Yeah. But I got a couple of questions on this one. One is the proposed primary school. We don't know what capacity would be of this school. Will this school take the children only from this development house, which are 1,500, or they will take the children from nearby in neighborhood? So we don't know the number of the children and the capacity of this school. And second is, I would like to build this school before any resident move into the new development, new house. If the resident move before the new school build, then where the children will go? So I want to clarify on those two questions, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. Councillor Patrick.
Thanks, Chair. I was interested to read the consultee responses and to see that I was very disappointed that there was hardly any objections from KC, Kirklees Council consultees, and I understand why that is, but I don't think it's very helpful for us as the people who ultimately make the decision. I would like to see greater scrutiny from Kirklees Council consultees at all stages of this, actually, because I think if it's going to happen, it needs to be done right, and it's such a massive undertaking. When you think of the problems and difficulties we come across for planning applications for just 46 houses or 20 houses, this is going to be multiplied on a huge scale. So when I see paragraph 8.16 KC highway structures, one line, it's not helpful to me. I need to see more than that from KC highway structures. That tells me nothing at all. The local lead flood authority have said a bit more, but they started off by saying no objection and then saying what they want to see done. Well, if it's not in there and they want to see it done, why isn't there an objection? If you see what I'm saying, it's not a wish list, isn't this? It's what's in front of them, and I think they need to be critical and scrutinise what's in front of them. If it's not right, they need to say it. That not say what they think they want to see. The external consultees have been more free in what they've been able to say, and I understand that and understand why. Highways England, they've got a holding objection. Sport England, they've got an objection. And what was it, Yorkshire Wildlife Trust? So external consultees are more likely to scrutinise it than our internal ones, and I would put a plea out that our officers do actually scrutinise it, and if this is approved, we get it right. I think they do us a disservice if they don't do it, if they don't scrutinise it to that degree. And we can see this being deferred, even if it's split down into smaller planning applications when it comes through to reserved matters. We can see this being deferred and sent back for more information, however many times, because we've got to get it right. The only other point that jumped out at me was because of the size of the development, and I've worked on developments like this in Leeds in a small capacity, but I've seen how they can be produced, but it's got to be well organised. both by the lead developer and the council. And I think these schemes are best delivered if the infrastructure, the road infrastructure, is put in first. Let's not be, and I know Councillor Sokol just referred to the schools. All that has got to be sewn up first. You can't let the houses all be built and then leave it to economic uncertainty and never get the main stuff in there delivered. That has got to be delivered first. And there are financial implications for that, obviously, because you're putting this money up front and you're not selling houses. I'd also be a little bit worried about when the employment site got developed on the same basis, because I understand that they will want to build the houses first because that's where the big money is. But we also need that if we're going to approve this, then that employment land needs to be saved. We don't want a situation where it gets lost and then before we know where we are, they want to build more houses on that site too. So there we are. A few observations from me.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Nigel. Councillor Pinnock.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, some very helpful things said so far. One sort of observation I would make is that this is an application or two applications. Well, take the bigger one. Sorry, it's much bigger than anything most of us have ever dealt with before. And I do wonder whether it's possible to take it all in. It's fair enough to see the general outline. I mean, looking at the overall plan, you can see where the industrial or the business development is and where the housing is and where the community facilities are. But the question might arise as to whether it shouldn't be split up into bits as far as planning applications are concerned, so long as the overall master plan is agreed. I don't know whether this is a feasible way of doing it, whether you have an application for a master plan, sort that out first, and then deal with the individual bits on an ongoing basis, because I mean it's not all going to get built all at once anyway. I don't think, unless something remarkable happens, because it's not as if this was a completely flat site that was, say, an old airfield, for example, where you can just get on and do the whole thing all at once. Looking at the site as I did yesterday from the bit on Leeds Road where the pylon goes over, I walked into the site from there, and it's actually quite a refreshing sort of rural landscape that opens up when you walk in there. A patchwork of fields, a lot of them sown with winter wheat maybe already, which is just starting to come up, and it's a well-used landscape. Which is proposed to be changed into something completely different. It's not flat, and it therefore has certain issues about how you ensure that the development, insofar as the use of the word respect is the right one, so long as to try and get the development to at least partially respect the contours and so on. I do wonder whether we should. I mean, I don't know what the the outline application actually says, but treat the outline application as the master plan, and then deal with the detailed applications for different bits of it, as the Haybeck Lane application is trying to do. And, I mean, a lot of the points have already been raised, and I think that we need to ensure that when and if the development goes ahead, it goes ahead in a logical way, and that you don't end up with odd ends of roads here and there, which rather spoil the object of master planning. And I think I don't know whether Victor would explain whether the master plan is in effect the outline, and I don't know whether that's a feasible way of looking at it, but I'll leave it at that point. Thank you.
Right, Andrew, I'll just get Donna in, and then Victor, if you could come back and answer some of these questions. Donna.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what's been said. However we look at this, it's not just your usual planning application. It's huge. You're basically building a village, a small town in that area. So however you look at it, you're talking about a school, you're talking about the whole road structure. I would absolutely agree. The infrastructure needs to be done first, whether that, including the school and everything else, before you start even looking at any houses. Got to get that right before. If we were looking to pass these applications as they come up, I honestly do think it's got to be right. It's such a, it's a big development. It's not, your standard 200 houses that we look at. We're talking thousands. So yeah, I mean, that would be my concerns, and it is that case, and I do agree with that, Councillor Pinnock. It needs that master plan first. Exactly how is it going to work? So I'll leave it at that.
Right, thanks, Donna. So Victor, the only thing that I can think of that it's anything near it is, I think it's called City Fields at Wakefield, which is across the road from Pinderfields. And if memory serves me right, I think it stretches off down towards Castleford. And there's, I think it's 3,500 houses, industrial land, school, etc. Victor, I think members are right, because this is so big. How are we going to do it? How many schemes do we think there might be? How many parcels do we think there might be? How much infrastructure can go down first? So it's that simple, Victor, basically, if you can just give us some answers on stuff like that.
Thank you, Chair, through you. I'll try. It is a massive scheme. It's the biggest application that council has seen for some time, certainly the biggest on its books at the moment. And the way that the council as local planning authority handles the determination of these two applications is going to require some more consideration. If I may put a question to members through you, Chair, one suggestion that we've been thinking about an officer level is whether or not sometime next year, when these applications do come forward for determination, would the committee prefer to have a single dedicated meeting of the Strategic Planning Committee where only these two applications are considered, and there wouldn't be any restriction on time as to how long the two applications were debated? I'll just put that out there if that's okay, Chair.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. We can organise that. In terms of master planning and the various components and the various future reserve matters applications that will be brought forward, just regarding master planning, obviously a master plan is not just one single document, it's a suite of documents and an approach and all the other supporting information that informs the documents that are eventually submitted at application stage. So that master planning work has been done by the applicants, but bearing in mind these are two applications for outline planning permission, what the applicants are asking to be approved is fairly bony information in terms of what goes where on the site. And as I mentioned, a lot of the drawings that have been submitted are for illustration and are indicative rather than drawings that would be approved. The drawings that would be approved relate to what's actually proposed, which is an outline proposal that sets out a quantum of development, and that's where I mentioned the 1,500 and odd residential units and X amount of employment floor space and a school and so on, that proposes those uses. So the council will be considering the principle, the acceptability of those uses and the principle of those uses being developed at this site, and also details of access. And that goes as far as the approval of the proposed access points and also the routes of the residential spine road and part of the employment areas road. That's the extent of what would be approved if the council decides to approve planning permission at this outline stage. And then there would be subsequent reserve matters applications. Now we don't know, and we can't say how many reserve matters applications will be submitted in the future, but what the council as local planning authority can do at this outline stage is make sure that parameters are set for those future reserve matters applications so that they do comply with what's agreed and what's set out by the council as important at this outline stage. So for example, the developable area plan that the applicant has submitted for approval at this stage, which they didn't actually have to do, that's something they've volunteered to do to give the council reassurance as to what's proposed where. That would set parameters for those future reserve matters applications, and those future applications would have to comply with what's set out in that plan, for example. And the same with the green infrastructure plan, the blue infrastructure plan. Those are documents that would be approved at outline stage. So if in the future, if these outline applications are approved in the future, if reserve matters applications come to this committee, we would remind members, and I'm sure members would remember anyway, of what parameters were set previously at outline stage. And so, yeah, it's important that the council sets those parameters now and gets those right so that those future applications are informed by them and an acceptable development is brought forward in the future. I'll just go through all the other points, Chair, if that's okay. I'll just refer to my list. In terms of phasing and the risk of the employment part of the scheme not being carried out, we can, or the council can, through a Section 106 agreement and conditions, set out requirements saying, for example, only X amount of residential units can be developed and occupied before the employment floor space is built out, or there could be a requirement along the lines of X amount of employment floor space needs to be built before a certain number of residential properties are allowed to become occupied. And we can do that for all the elements of the development where there's evidence that will be necessary. So we can do that for the school, for example. Now officers would have to base our recommendations to members regarding delivery of the school on various considerations, including existing local capacity. It may be that the school might not be needed immediately, but it might be needed in a fairly early phase of development, and we can make sure that that is delivered at a timely stage, and that will be secured through a Section 106 agreement. But if members think that it is needed straight away, and if there's evidence to support that, then that can be secured as well. Just on the comments made by Councillor Scott, Yorkshire Wildlife Trust, yeah, they did raise quite a lot of concerns regarding the applicant's submission to do with wildlife surveys and the biodiversity net gain calculation that the applicants have submitted. The applicants have responded to those concerns. Certainly on the net gain calculation, they agree that there were some errors, some areas that need clarification or correction, and they are working on redoing those calculations. In terms of surveys, I think it's important to note that the surveys that inform a biodiversity net gain calculation can be done now, and we can establish what net gain will be achieved now, but bearing in mind that in perhaps 10 years' time, if outline permission is granted, the situation on the ground might be different, and a further survey and a further calculation might be necessary just to demonstrate that each parcel of land, as they're brought forward, will still demonstrate that net biodiversity gain. So there's, if outline permission is granted, there's going to have to be a fairly complicated arrangement whereby net biodiversity gain will have to be constantly reassessed as each phase of development is brought forward at this site, and that's doable, but there is a lot of work that's going to be involved in drawing up the wording of that Section 106 agreement. Just on air quality, apologies, there's not a lot of information in my position statement regarding that matter, but just to reassure members, air quality impact assessments were done for both sites, both applications, and I will provide a lot more detail in the next, either a position statement if it comes back as a position statement, or the next committee reports to provide that information for members. Regarding buffer zones from between potentially noisy and potentially light polluting uses adjacent to existing residential uses and proposed residential uses. Yeah, that is noted. We are conscious that muggers can be quite intrusive in terms of noise and light pollution and can adversely affect neighbouring amenity. We're actually having conversations with the applicant and colleagues and Sport England as to what level of on-site provision, if any, would be appropriate for this site, and whether or not this development would be better off contributing towards improvements locally, such as at Dewsbury Rams or the Shawcross facilities. We are conscious, yeah, that on-site provision could be problematic and possibly might not be the best idea for this site. Affordable housing, the policy requirement is 20%. Officers, we wouldn't advise going above that. Above 20% would obviously be welcomed, but to require more than 20%, we would have to have a policy basis for doing that and an evidence base supporting that policy, which currently isn't there. Density variations were noted by Councillor Scott. There is a section in the position statement about density and how I've used the term a crescendo of density could be appropriate on the approach to the proposed local centre, which would reflect the crescendo of density that you normally find typically as you approach any town or city in the UK, and that really helps with creating memorable, legible places, and it's logical as well. You often find the lowest density development away from our local centres and the highest in the local centres. So I think there is some potential for density variations within the site for those reasons. Councillor Sokol talked about the primary school. A lot more work needs to be done on that front. So yes, it's possible that the primary school might take kids from existing residential communities surrounding the site, or it might be it might cater entirely for residents of the proposed development. It really depends on pupil numbers for each year. I don't think there would be a justification for restricting attendance at this new primary school to only residents of this proposed development. In terms of comments from council consultees, there have been concerns raised by highways development management officers. The lead local flood authority has expressed a concern, although hasn't objected to the applications, but has expressed a concern about a discharge rate suggested for the Haybeck Lane site, and they've also suggested or recommended the setting up of a working group, which is probably a good idea. A working group that would involve the current applicants, council officers, possibly external consultees, and the future developers of this site, who would carry on working together to make sure that an approach to drainage across the site continues to be master planned and coordinated. There's also been objections from our ecologist, the council's ecologist, that align and correspond with those concerns raised by the Yorkshire Wildlife Trust. There was just on the point raised by Councillor Lukic regarding the Forestry Commission, I will look into that and their role as a potential non-statutory consultee on this application. My understanding is that they tend not to be involved in commenting on planning applications, but I will look into that and I will get back to Councillor Lukic on that point. I think, Chair, that's all the points that were raised that I can respond to, but we will take away all those comments and queries, and those will inform the ongoing discussions we're having with the applicants and consultees. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thanks, Victor. Any more questions? If not, I've just got something that I'd like to say now, and it's on lots of applications that we've been getting in lately. The national minimum standard size is not being followed. New houses seem to be, especially affordable ones, developers seem to be thinking it's quite all right to build them basically like Wendy houses. And I wondered if there's anything that we can do straight away before, you know, a shovel's even being put in ground, to say to developers, etc., look, this is Kirklees, we do want this national minimum size, as it's got to be there. We're fed up of having small houses built and we're not putting up with it. So I'd like to put that out to them straight away.
Yeah.
So I trust Victor, you'll have a go at him about that and tell them straight from beginning.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I will relay that to the church commissioners, and we'll expect them to relay that to their developer partners.
Right. That's 13 and 14 done. So, colleagues, I reckon that's it now.
Well done.
We can call it a draw for another 4 weeks, and then we can do it all over again. So we'll go into mute, and thanks everybody for taking part, and officers as well. All here. Thank you.
Thank you,
Chair. Thank you, Victor.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.